This live production of the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge is dedicated to Katie Phillips and the Phillips family. Stay strong, Katie. The team and I are right behind you. Well, filthy Luca, as Europe's elite go about throwing their wonga at each other, Town fans are gearing themselves up for a potentially mega conclusion to 31 days of banzai bonkers transfer business. Town have, as we know, already been eye-catching participants. Well, like it or hate it, the UK's equivalent of the NFL draft, desperately engineered that way by viewer-hungry Sky Sports, is certainly a roller coaster, with eye-watering sums blown on the mid-season rush to accelerate the rush for glory, consolidate a position of safety, or stave off the terrifying ghouls of relegation. Well, Town are currently sixth in League Two, as we know, and a big name head coach has been installed just a few hours ago. And we've got an expectant fan base with an insatiable thirst for success to quench. Expectations are rising by the minute. Well, this is our third transfer window special at the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge, so you can trust us to bring you an unashamedly Swindon Town skewed non-stop roller coaster ride through it all. Our intrepid panellists are perched alongside me at Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge Towers, and as usual, we have roving reporters outside the county ground as I speak, and they're dodging the blue dildos, blow-up dolls, and sexual simulation against the county ground hotel exterior walls. At least they were when we last left them, but it's getting a bit cold out there, dear listener. Well, they snag an exclusive before they grow ice cubes. Stand by for updates. Well, we're going to be across every deal at every club, making your Sky Sports subscription utterly redundant, obviously. With Chelsea already 600 million into their 22-23 kitty alone, 300 million spent since the start of the year, is going to be another whopper of a window. No question. And we, of course, want to know what you think about Town's window so far. Share your thoughts, and your wardrobe will get a limited edition glow-up of the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge hoodie and a Dan Designs print. Well, look, let's get started, shall we? Let's introduce you to the panel. Joe, good evening, buddy.
Good evening, Hannahs. Happy transfer deadline day.
Happy transfer deadline day. And it's getting happier by the minute. Town have been busy, so we're rubbing our thighs in delight. Hopefully more to come. We've got the wonderful Chris Phillips with me. How are we, Chris?
I'm okay. I'm okay. All things considered.
Yeah. Digging in, pal. Digging in. Putting smiles on faces tonight, pal, yours included. We've got Ellis with us. How are we, champ?
I'm good as always. How are you, Hannahs?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you, buddy. Very, very well. Looking forward to the next 3 hours. I'm rubbing my hands together, Del Boy-like, and I'm wheeling and I'm dealing is what I'm doing right now. We've got Jason with us as well. How are we, Jason?
I'm not going to lie. I'm swathed with melancholic pathos. Just the idea that little Johnny, the hero Williams, saviour of the Welsh, could leave us in this transfer window.
Yeah.
But apart from that, I'm very well.
Oh, honestly, mate. Honestly, I don't want to contemplate it. I like to think it's just someone's just messing with my chi thing, man. That's what's going on here. Someone's just messing. But let's not get too downhearted or too bogged down, Jason. Let's not distract ourselves from the joy the next 3 hours are going to bring us. Well, look, I mean, we got it all going on, and we've got an expectant crowd listening in, dear panelists. But I notice on our contributors list thus far, we've yet to see Martin, and we've got the voice. He's there, Mike. How are we, pal?
We're good. It's me and Martin here outside the county ground. It's very dark and cold, but we're here.
Yeah. Is Walker there? Is what the public want to know.
Unless he's sat in a car, it's just us. I'm hoping someone from the club will let us in. It's cold. Don't know why we're here. Why have you made us come here? The shutters are down. No one's around. Let us just go home.
Oh, I don't. No. I still believe there's people deep in the bowels of the county ground. I will not have anything of the sort. So I take it all is quiet on the Western Front at the moment, gentlemen. Is that right?
When I turned up, the shutters were up. The office lights are on. I went to watch Gabs go and goal for a bit. Came back and the shutters are down and the bloke who was in the office has gone home. So it's great. Really, really great.
Well, that may suggest that business has been done, and that basically old admin is going to be teasing us throughout the night. Or it could also mean that they know that we're out there, that the Citizen Broadbent Lounge is stalking them like Jaws was stalking the newly appointed chief of police of Amity Island, and so they're not having it. They've shut the doors.
I'm more
They bombed you
concerned
off.
that absolutely nothing's going to happen. We're stood out here like a pair of twats.
Well, Dean McMackin, true to form, Martin has said, "Oh look, true to form, Martin's out there hanging around the car park." So read into that, dear listener, what you will. Thank you, Dean. It's a brilliant observation to make. So listen, I mean, we've got we're like I say, we're all across this. We're across the entire window, and you are not going to miss a single deal. But we've promised you a significant Swindon Town skew. So we're going to get the ball rolling by just having a little review of the Swindon Town window so far before we broaden things out a little bit. And Joe, I'll start with you because obviously it's been a very busy window, and arguably in League Two we have made as a club, I would argue, the most high-profile signing of all League Two clubs. Appreciate I'm biased, but Charlie Austin playing League Two football was something I don't think any Swindon Town fan would have been lumping on at the start of the season. And that weren't a bad way to start the window now, was it?
No, absolutely. I think any Stockport County fan can shove Phil Bardsley so far up their arse it comes out their mouth because,
well,
let's face it, Charlie Austin in League Two is the most impressive signing maybe ever in terms of just on paper. Yeah, I mean, we've had him come in, obviously. We've had Jake Cain, who is, Liverpool's 23s captain, I think, taken over from Tom Clayton. So that's pretty cool that we've had both of their 23s captains come to the club successively. So that's exciting. Obviously, we've had FBT come in on a permanent, who's been probably arguably one of, if not the player of the season. We've got Jody Morrison, we'll come on to Jody, I'm sure, for a prolonged period of time this evening, but that's a blow your socks off managerial appointment. Come on, admin, give us 2 or 3 more to just whet that appetite just a little bit more, and maybe I'll call it the best January window of all time. Who knows?
Yeah, we're not asking for much, are we? I mean, listen, we'll spend a little bit of time just talking about Charlie, because obviously the business was concluded. The deal itself was clearly being built across November and December, and it came to fruition in time for the start of January transfer window, and he's hit the ground running. So, I mean, Chris, it's as a fan that's sort of been there, seen there, done it. It's been. There were concerns, wasn't there, amongst the older guard like ourselves. Whilst we might personally, you and I, not have been particularly cynical, but there were concerns that him coming back is, you never go back. You don't want to spoil your legacy. But he's hit the ground running, fair to say. 3 goals in 2. He's been amongst the assists. And he's now wearing the captain's armband. That is quite a return for CA11, as he is now.
Oh, it has been. And you just look at the what is... It's not just the goals he brings; it's what he brings. I mean, elsewhere as well. You look at Jake Wakeland as well. How much is he going to learn off him? And the way that I think he just is sort of almost taken those 2 young lads under his wing, and eventually, obviously, it's going to take a time for them to gel properly as a cohesive unit. But those front 3 have looked pretty decent so far.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think it was tricky. It was tricky, I think, for Jeff Gott, wasn't it, at the weekend? I think.
What's this text coming in, Hatters? Breaking news at the county ground. We've just had a text from Martin.
Yeah, let's have it. What we got, Martin?
Martin, come on. What's breaking news?
Bring in the voice.
What we got for us, Mike? What we got for the public?
Literally nothing. I was just winding up Joe and he fell for it. I can't believe he actually just shouted that out. It wasn't meant for him to speak out loud. It was meant for just the group.
Oh, you're a twat.
Oh, I see. You're going to be playing those games with us, are you, Martin? Well, listen, true to form, 2 can play that game, pal. If you're going to be the boy that cried wolf all night, mate, then, we might have to extend the show until 2 in the morning. Listen, I don't care. I've not got to work tomorrow. The kids are all suffering from industrial action at school. You're in a car. I've got the beers. So, hey, who's winning?
I just didn't realise Joe was going to do that or be that gullible. I thought he'd at least wait for the picture to go through. Jeez.
Well, listen,
I'm not going to do it anymore, that's for sure. You've ruined the show now,
Well,
Martin.
Yeah, you've ruined the show,
mind
Martin.
the picture. The moon looks well nice.
What kind of charlatan are you? You're supposed to be a cutting-edge journalist for the night. Someone get down there with a blue dildo and shove it right in his ear. Listen, we've had a. Whilst we're on the subject of Charlie Austin, Steve has tweeted. Steve, good evening. He said he's been a revolution, has our Charlie. Exactly what the club needed. Now, Steve, that's a little bit rich coming from you, pal, isn't it? I think we all know that you've been eating a large dollop of humble pie. All joking aside, Steve, Steve's definitely one of the kind of older guard, Chris. We were talking about the fact that, you know, there is a general kind of cliche that floats about the UK that we don't go back. And I mean, certainly, you know, Steve talked a lot about the dangers of sentiment. And I think all ribbing aside, there was always that risk, wasn't there? And Charlie was very open about the fact that, you know, coming back on his first game, you know, he was really nervous. You know, there was no certainties he was going to hit the ground running. He's lent back into, you know, the abilities that we've all know he's got, and you know, he's banished any thoughts of that not happening. And he's done what Charlie does brilliantly. Great movement in the box. I mean, all three of his goals, Chris, so far have been just raw. You know, just I'll say, well, certainly two of the three, raw ability, brilliant movement. But even the third one, the penalty. You know, Charlie's bright enough to know you hit that hard enough and low enough, and even if the keeper gets something on it, the chances of it getting across the line are pretty high. So it proved.
Well, I think the one thing as well is that, probably like under Lindsey as well that we missed with. I mean, we've got probably the best crosser in the ball in the division, and early in the season before Charlie came here, there was little to no movement in the box, and the difference that he brings there as well. And it's not just that. I think it was Lavinia's goal against Grimsby. Just Charlie's nous there give Lavinia that little bit of space that enabled them to get that shot off that went in. So it's not just what he brings personally; it's what he brings to other players that's going to make us a lot more dangerous going forward. And I'm excited of how this is going to be under Jody Morris, who's going to bring a different dynamic in there, and I'm excited.
I'll tell you what's really impressed me, Chris. We just started talking about it before Martin decided to derail the entire show and embarrass us all. Thanks, Martin. I've been really impressed actually with his impact, like you said about the impact on the wider squad. So we talked to quite a lot of the boys off air, and they've all unequivocally stated that, you know, Charlie's presence in and around the club has given everyone in the dressing room a massive lift, and that they're all really enjoying playing alongside Charlie. Jake Wakeling's been, for me, Jake Wakeling's performances are enjoying somewhat of an uplift, shall we say, after a kind of tricky period. I mean, Jake's stats, as the boys all said after Saturday's game, Jake's stats for the club, you know, it's easy to kind of, you know, if you're not looking at the statistical analysis, it's easy to overlook just how important Jacob's been. So 5 goals, 5 assists. And at the weekend, I mean, I highlighted in a tweet a couple of days back now, at the weekend, he played an active role in 2 of our 3 goals. But yeah, at the same time, he was subbed off about midway through the second half, wasn't he? So I think that kind of opened the door to a little bit of criticism. It's another game where Jake hasn't scored. But, you know, you said yourself, Chris, Jake is going to benefit immensely, isn't he, from playing alongside Charlie Austin. And, you know, comparisons have once again been drawn this week about the Yates and Doyle partnership. And now, you know, you've got where conversations were being led as Luke Jeffcott being the Owen Doyle of the pair, and Jakey being the Jerry Yates. Now you've got Charlie Austin playing the Owen Doyle role. So it's not, you know, it's a great position for us to be in, buddy, isn't it?
I think, yeah, and I think you also need to watch the play. It's not say, oh, you look at Jake Wakeling as a striker, oh, he's only scored 5 goals. But when you watch him play, he's the energy he has as well. he doesn't give defence any chance. He'll chase everything, and sometimes as well, being I'd probably call him more of a forward than a striker, but being a forward player, it's not just about being there waiting for the ball to come in. It's about pressing at the top, hounding them, and forcing mistakes out, and he'll chase everything down. And
Chris, I was just going to say, because I've been really impressed with Charlie in that respect. I think there were some concerns that he was going to be super pedestrian, but Charlie's getting involved, isn't he? He's making life very difficult for defenders. He's obviously, the good news is with Charlie is that, and we saw it particularly in the early stages of the first half, about the opposition doubling up on him. But Charlie's not sort of backwards in coming forwards when it comes to the defensive duties, is he? And I think Saturday as a whole was a really, really good illustration of that. Ellis, I'll bring you in, pal, at this stage, because obviously you and I we did the pre-match show on Saturday, and we were talking about our hopes for Charlie and the upsides of having Charlie in the lineup. But that was a mighty performance from him on Saturday, wasn't it? A bit of a disjointed first half from the team, but once the formation issues were settled down and effective substitutes made, Charlie was Charlie put in a fairly, well, a very impressive performance, would you not say?
Yeah, we've touched on it before, but he's always, where he needs to be, sort of in and around the 6-yard box, the penalty spot. He's always around there, and when you've got a crosser like Hutton, or even Hepburn Murphy, that assist that he got for Charlie's goal. Is his not only his finishing but his positional sort of awareness helps us out massively, and we've seen it in the past 2 games when he's been playing, because 3 goals in 2 games is good going.
Yeah, 3 goals in 2 games, and it's brilliant that he's allowing us to park any maybe lingering concerns around fitness and contribution. I think we've all commented, haven't we? And Mike, I'll get a comment from you, because I know you've mentioned this, that Charlie looks in fantastic shape, doesn't he, mate? Fitness wise, we've got no concerns. There's always going to be conversations about, is the shoulder up to it, this, that, and the other. But he was given a couple of big clatterings, and he was given a couple of clatterings out himself on Saturday, and he was unfazed by it all. Just give us a nice roundup, Mike, on how you feel about him being back, because obviously you were one of the dissenters. It's fair to say you had some points that were a little more aligned to what Steve's just tweeted. Oh, I think we've lost Mike. All right, well, listen, we'll park the Charlie Austin fun bus, and we'll move along, because another piece of business that we've done is Saturday, a really impressive signing, Jake Cain from Liverpool. Joe obviously came off the bench, didn't he, on Saturday? I thought he was mightily impressive. He was here, he was there, he was everywhere, and getting involved in all the set pieces, getting on the ball, demanding the ball, play some really lovely football, didn't he? Knitted it all together. What are you making of Jake Cain as a signing?
I didn't really know what to make of him at the start, really. I think obviously his pedigree is probably up there with some of the best that you can possibly have. A lot of Newport fans are saying that he was, a really impressive player towards the back end of last season, maybe a little bit on the lightweight side, but I think if you're playing in a Newport side, he was probably sort of recruited by Michael Flynn. And I think in a Michael Flynn team, if you're under 6'5" and haven't got the biceps the side of Arnold Schwarzenegger, you're probably going to struggle. I think on paper, I thought, it's a decent signing. He's on a long-term contract for a League Two player. So I thought, one for the future. But, he came on the pitch on Saturday, and it was strange. He brought a calmness to the midfield, I thought, but also a certain amount of tenacity and aggression as well, because he was really hard on the tackles. He was getting involved, but he was winning a lot of the ball back as well. His duels one-on-one were really good defensively. he was quick at receiving the ball and then playing it out either wide to Rush or to Jake. I thought he looked really good. I thought I think his first corner was he probably mishit it a little bit, and it was a bit of a Christian Eriksen moment. But other than that, his deliveries were spot on. I think he'll suit the squad really well. I think someone like Jody Morris coming in, who's obviously got the best out of players his age consistently over his coaching career, he's probably the demographic of gaffer that you would expect to get the best out of a Jake Cain. So I'm really excited by him. I think we'll see a lot out of him over the next 19 league games or whatever we've got left. I think it'll be big for us. I think the midfield three of Khan, Cain, and a man that will be staying put no matter what happens this evening in Johnny Williams is a fairly competent and a threat in League Two of a midfield.
Yeah, I'll make you right. I mean, we're gonna come back to Jody Morris, because I think there's a really I think whilst there's a certain benefit to the under 23 style player, but I still believe that Jody Morris as a gaffer is going to be one of those who will capture the imagination of the older pro in the squad. He says, even though we seem to be selling them all, but I still think he's got enough gravitas as a former Premier League footballer, highly decorated Premier League footballer at that, to capture the imagination of supporters that like a name, and players that want to be motivated, or if they're going to be balled at by a player that's been there and done it. So I think it's I think that's really exciting. So we will come back onto him, but going back to Jake Cain, I think what really impressed me on Saturday, was the fact that he was just totally unfazed. Straight off the bench, immediately got stuck in. He seemed to be at the heart of everything, and I think that can only bode well. I mean, if that is how you perform as a former under 23 player, young kid coming through the Liverpool academy, if that's how you're going to perform, and of course he's no stranger to League Two football, is he? Long and impressive stint at Newport last season, and he returned to Liverpool with and I mean this in a nice way, with a nice chip on his shoulder. Quotes attributed to Jake were that, I've done what I was asked, and now I'm back, and he kind of had that confidence with a hint of arrogance to expect to be in and around the Liverpool first team. So I mean, listen, if you can't be impressed by that kind of signing with that kind of pedigree, then I don't know what's going to impress you.
I don't know. Yeah, I completely agree, but I don't know what you think on this as well, Hannahs. He looked a lot bigger in person than I thought he did, just from based on pictures and photos and videos from last year. I'd watched quite a few of his highlights from Newport. He didn't look as small in height as I thought he would, and he also didn't look as sort of scrawny. That's a horrible word to use, because he's not scrawny, he's a young lad. But you look at the difference when Tom Clayton came in the summer, he looked very, very slim. Now he's sort of, Ricky's been driving into him, I'm sure, some dietary requirements to be able to perform at this level, and he looks bigger, he looks filled out a little bit more. But Jake Cain, I think he looks like he's got a bit of muscle in his bones, and I didn't expect it.
I know what you mean. I mean, he's and he's only going to get bigger, right? He's only going to get bigger, and I mean that in a positive way, clearly, as he continues to build up his man muscles. I mean, like I said, I'll just go back to Saturday. Was a very, very impressive debut from him.
Mate, it was impressive in a way as well. He was flying into tackles with a Gillingham team that were built like brick shithouses.
Yeah, totally unfazed, Joe, wasn't he? Totally unfazed. But as I say, if you've already got a season of League Two football under your belt, then you kind of know what to expect. But I mean, he to me looks. I mean, he already looks a class above. But we've had another signing today, announced not long before we came on air. And how chuffed are we to be confirming the permanent signing of a certain Frazer Blake-Tracy? The Frazer Blake-Tracy situation's a really funny one as far as I'm concerned, because at the start of the season it seemed like we were blessed with centre backs and left backs, and then we seem to be cursed in the left back position, losing Ellis and losing Reece Devine in quick succession. And centre backs, it was an odd one, because Joe and I did a little bit of commentary pre-season, and it's fair to say, Joe, and especially given one of the departures that we've had today, we weren't exactly kind of doing cartwheels about our options at centre-back. And then, lo and behold, we pick up this lad, Frazer Blake-Tracy from Burton. I think most of us were sort of scratching our heads going, who the bloody hell's this? But he won our hearts over very, very quickly, Joe. And I think it would be fair to say, Joe, would you not agree, especially given the departures of Louis Reed, who potentially could have turned on a very, very strong second half of the season, but certainly Ben Gladwin, who had a brilliant start to the season, although a little bit faded of late. I think Frazer Blake-Tracy is going to be pushing Sol Brinsley for Player of the Year this year, but without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, 100%. I think if Frazer just does what he's been doing for the last 6 months and putting in 7 out of 10s every single week, winning 99% of his headed duels, I think he's got to get it, hasn't he?
I think the thing that just amazes me is there is not a place
if Charlie
that
goes and scores, and so
yeah. I mean, honestly, Joe, like I said, I can't believe there is not a place where that guy won't stick his head to try and defend his own goal.
Mate, he's constantly got a black eye, and I think that to me, as a lad that's grown up watching the likes of John Terry and Nemanja Vidic at the highest level, just putting their heads in where it hurts. I mean, Nemanja Vidic back in the day, if the ball was at knee height, he wasn't going to volley it away. He was whacking his head in there and getting his noggin on it. So he just reminds me, it slaps of that era of centre back where you'd finish every single game with a bandage on your head. The guy's got a black eye 24/7, and I absolutely love it.
What you're talking about, Joe, is Sean Taylor.
That's exactly, yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what, if he produces the goal threat that Sean Taylor used to produce, Chris, then we'll all be over the moon, won't we? But has there been any confirmation of the contract length? I'm going to guess it's at least 2 years.
I think it's till 2024.
Blake-Tracy was 2024.
Yeah,
2024. So a 2.5-year deal. So that's a fantastic piece of business to get him locked down. The interesting thing about Frazer Blake-Tracy is while he's a slightly older pro amongst a very, very young squad, he's still young enough and he plays in a position where I think he will still have a resale value. And also he's quite clearly demonstrated, because I don't think the gap between the top of League Two and League One is actually that big. He's going to easily make that step up when we make that step up. And it's a funny one, isn't it? Because we get sort of sold this dream that we've got a player that can play left back and comfortably play left centre back, and actually can bring the ball out. And you sort of listen to that and you're like, yeah, like that's all part of the sales patter. But he literally does what he says on the tin, doesn't he? He's looked fantastic on the ball, bringing it out of defence, and when he's had to, just ferocious in the header, ferocious in the tackle, just a proper Lionheart. Like Charlie Austin tweeted today, didn't he, that when the deal was completed, he's the kind of guy that you want on your trench. I can't think of a better way to summarise. I mean, look, Ellis, as someone that gets paid to get punched in the face, that is yourself, you'd agree with that, wouldn't you? You'd have a Frazer Blake-Tracy in your trench all day long.
100%. Joe touched on it. He's always sort of putting something on the line. He's getting stuck into tackles, and I feel like at times in Saturday's game we missed that. We're sometimes quite hesitant in the tackles, and Blake-Tracy just sort of gives you that bit of aggression, bit of desire to win the ball, and yeah, it certainly plays a big difference.
So we're gonna have a quick chat about a couple of the outs. So obviously we've talked previous shows about the departure of Louis Reed. Very, very sad to see Louis disappear. Clearly, whilst I don't necessarily think he was on a king's ransom, he was going to be one of the slightly higher earners, just given where he come from. I think it's fair to say. Ben Gladwin, a real shame to see Ben Gladwin go this week. We haven't had an opportunity to spend too much time talking about Ben Gladwin. But Gladwin to Crawley, maybe I'm reading into it a little bit too much, but I didn't get the impression Ben Gladwin's over the moon to be departing SM1 Hello, Gabs. You've just joined us, pal. How are you doing?
Hello. Yeah, very cold. Fingers freezing from playing in goal for an hour and a bit. I have no clue how Martin and Mike stood outside the county ground, go home, get in the cold, have a brew.
We're just talking Ben Gladwin, Gabs, you may have heard. And I was saying that maybe I'm reading into it a bit too much, but looking at his unveiling video and photos at Crawley, he didn't look over the moon to have been pulled away from SM1.
Yeah, like I said in the group chat, actually, when it happened, I stole it from a certain Joe Sellers. Yeah, he didn't look very Ben Gladwin, didn't he? More like Ben Sadwin.
Boom, boom.
But no, can't you blame him, really? You're going from a potential playoff battle to a relegation scrap.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it, Crawley? Because even though we all know that they've got quite a lot of crypto behind them, they just don't seem to be getting their act together. Although they got a handsome win at the weekend, and Ben Gladwin got off to a winning start. Obviously, he's going to be playing with a familiar face in Dion Conroy.
He scored as well.
And there are some. But I beg your pardon.
He scored as well, Conroy, at the weekend.
Hey, there you are. And there is rumours, of course, that potentially more Town players could be making their way down the M4 and round the M25 and down the M23 to be joining him. But we'll come on to that. Guys, anyone else want to sort of pay a little tribute to the erstwhile Ben Gladwin before we move on to slightly more beefy matters?
Yeah, I'll butt in here. He's certainly been one of our better players this season. You spoke about it before, Hannah's. Spoke about it on Saturday, how it possibly could have hindered the squad more than helps, because we sort of we didn't expect Gladwin to be as good as he was this season. He was sort of the scapegoat, if you like, last season. So it was almost as like we were trying to fit him in the squad, sort of playing Williams out of position, and just trying to fit him in a squad just because he's in good form. But yeah, some of the passes that he'd been playing this season was phenomenal. Something like I can't remember what game it was, but just balls over the top that you didn't think would even be possible. So yeah, it's sad to see him go, but I don't think we missed him on Saturday. I think if you put Gladwin in that squad, I couldn't see us winning that game or doing any better than what we did. But yeah, sad to see him go.
Yeah, obviously, but very popular senior pro, popular around the squad, popular around the fans. Clearly a proper club man as well. I think I tweeted at the time when he departed, you don't have that many spells at the county ground unless you truly do love Swindon Town Football Club. So it was kind of sad to see things come to an end with Ben Gladwin in the manner that they did. Obviously, the deal itself is undisclosed, which would suggest that we've got some kind of fee for him. And when you consider this is a guy that by his own admission was considering retiring prior to his latest return to the county ground, I think that's going to end up. I think we're all gonna look back in time and say that's pretty good business. And I think it's not the end of the Swindon Town Ben Gladwin story, is it? I think we're all very, very aware that Ben Gladwin wants to be a coach and move into football management. And I've got a sneaky feeling that it's not the last of Ben Gladwin in Swindon Town colours. Whether it's the last active playing spell, I don't even think we should be writing that off at this stage, given how many times he's been back. But even if it is a bit of a long shot. But hey, listen, I said we're going to move on to slightly more beefy matters, and beefy matters we are. So it's now Aberdeen, Angus, MacDonald. Couldn't be a more Scottish headline. And if he wanted to get away from the county ground, I don't think he could have gone any further than Aberdeen. So Aberdeen, who wants to chip in on Angus MacDonald? I mean, I'll get the ball rolling by saying that at the start of the season, I think our technical director stated that this was the one that he really wanted. This was the one that was going to, that he had been a captain at all of the clubs that he'd represented. That this was going to be the leader that we needed. He was going to add the steel to the back line that we all hoped for. I think, Joe, you and I both commented on Angus in pre-season looking a little uncertain and a little bit shaky, but at the same time, having come back from very serious injury and illness, we were kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt. But it seemed to me, Joe, as the season unfolded, Angus's performances, I really started noticing it was like he needed sort of 20 odd minutes to kind of get going in games, sort of get his passing range going. And at that stage, we were kind of pretty much under the cosh in most of the games he played. What do you make of it, mate? So obviously he's no longer of this parish. A short spell, but he seems genuinely sad based on his socials to be leaving. But at the same time, a huge opportunity for him as well.
I wouldn't say he looks like he's genuinely sad. I think he looks like he's just celebrating a move to a fairly big club, which is kind of fair enough, I guess, personally. I think the biggest sort of tragedy, I guess, is we've signed a player on what I can only imagine would be significant League Two wages. We've given him the captain's armband, and then he's left in January, 6 months after we've joined. So, just based on that, even without the performance levels coming into it, I mean, on paper it doesn't look amazing, does it? Just on a very, very basic level, you've signed a player to be your captain, you're paying him big wages, he's pissed off after 6 months. I think we had the 9-game unbeaten run? Or it was been close to that, wasn't it? A few draws in there, but I think in that period when he was next to Bowdry, I think he looked quite comfortable. He looked quite good. You have moments in there like the Newport at home game where allegedly, he just doesn't play for our club anymore. We were there at the Town End. He had some choice words for the Swindon fans in the Town End. In your first month or so as captain of your new club, that's probably not the best way to build a relationship.
Well, I'll tell you what's interesting. MST's messaged us, and MST said, "I thought Angus wasn't a great skipper. He should have diffused McCurdy against Salford at the start of the season." I mean, yeah, to your point, Joe.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? There's to your point, it's almost like get to know your surroundings before you start getting stuck into the fans. I mean, obviously at the start of the year, Sol Bryn was getting some stick in the warm-up after Harrogate. And Mildy was in a position where, club legend, he kind of read the room, didn't he? And he's in a position where he can actually kind of have that conversation with the talent because he's sort of been there, done it. I think for the captain, it felt a little bit presumptuous on his part.
You look at what Frazer Blake-Tracy's done coming into the club in the same time period. He, to me, acts more like a captain than Angus ever has. Just the way he conducts himself. He always sticks around outside the Arkles after games to take photos of the kids and sign bits, which obviously, it's great PR and all that. And I'm not sure that many people are out there taking pictures of him doing it. So he does that out of the kindness of his own heart. He's aggressive on the field. He's in defence of his teammates. As I say, he gets hurt for the shirt and for the 3 points for the cause. Frazer, to me, is a captain. I don't think I've ever seen anything from Angus that said he is. I think
spot on.
He reads the game well.
Even Austin, after what a few weeks, look at him defending Wakelin on Twitter.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, Charlie did it perfectly, didn't he?
And you could just see already his presence on the pitch, the way he's waving his arms around, directing people, speaking to the ref, diffusing situations. I just feel like you get that from MacDonald, especially considering the team are fairly young as well, and he's one of the few, seasoned pros. That's just a bit disappointing, really. Maybe as well. Maybe he didn't like that aspect of it.
Yeah, I think he's a championship player. You can tell he's a championship player because he wants more time on the ball. I think he reads the game well. I don't think he does the dirty stuff very well. And I think that's probably a symptom of the Championship probably being what the Premier League was like 15 years ago. You've got players in there you get players from like the Belgian Premier Division come in who are all very technical players. You get players from even La Liga probably playing in the Championship these days. it's a continental league now. It's much like the Premier League, and I think when you drop down to League Two, it's so much more direct. You're playing against teams like Stevenage, who are going to bang balls down their wings and just cross them into Luke Norris 95,000 times or whatever a game. You've got teams like Gillingham at the weekend, like Ollie Hawkins. I've never seen a bigger human being in my life. Like, it's a different game, and I don't think it suits him.
Yeah,
But
there's another question to you actually about that Gillingham game, because I wasn't on earlier. I don't know if you discussed it. But do you think those 3 goals would have been conceded if MacDonald was at the back?
I think the first 2 goals were... the second 2 goals that we conceded were a joke. They weren't... the third goal, it's maybe MacDonald's experience. Maybe he takes up a position in the wall or in the line to intercept the cross, because I don't think that anyone got a touch on it. I think the cross goes in. The second goal was bullshit, and we'll talk about that soon. But I mean, it's hit Frazer in the face from point blank range, and the referee's given a penalty. The first goal was just, I don't think that even if Angus is there, one, he expects Ellis Angelo to not get out to his man to stop the cross, or 2, I don't think he's got the power to beat the striker with the header. I've had conversations today with people saying, with Angus, we've got 0.25 goals conceded per game. Without him, we're conceding 0.55. But the reason we're conceding without him is because we're playing with a right back at left back. We're playing with, non-recognised centre-backs with maybe young lads thrown in. We just haven't got the squad depth in that position to be able to cover Angus leaving. And Angus is he's a centre-back through and through, isn't he? So
I think what you saw Saturday was a classic case. I mean, you sort of touched on it a bit there. I mean, it's been a long time since Ellis has played at centre-back. And Ellis was playing the left of a back 3. You've got... I've actually... I feel like Brennan was starting to get his bearings in a flat back 4. So that then switching to a 3 is possibly going to have unsettled him a little bit. You then got FBT playing in the centre of a 3 when FBT was brought into the left back. You've got, like you said, you've got a right wing back playing as a left wing back on your left hand side where all that action came from. And then you've got obviously you've got your right wing back over the other side. But it was kind of like, it felt a little bit makeshift at the weekend. And it was a big, I don't know, I thought it was a little bit of it was ballsy, I think, to do that against Gillingham, given the aerial threat that they were going to pose. And their tails are up after 2 wins on the bounce. But fair play to Gav Gunning. He made the changes, made the substitutions, made the switches at the back, pushed Ellis a bit further off, then took him off at half time. And obviously all the substitutions worked. But well, look, we've had a few more tweets on Angus, so let me bring some of the listeners' comments in. So Taze, good evening, Taze, has said the MacDonald one is weird. Didn't he say he wanted to be here as he has family in the area, Winchester or somewhere? He seemed to lose confidence and struggled to play out from the back. As usual, got some unfair stick from the crowd, particularly some idiots in the away end at Northampton. Sarah V, all the way around the other side of the world. Hello, Sarah. Sarah also tweets, she says, I agree, MacDonald leaving is some odd optics. The wonderful Dan Hunt. Dan, hello, mate. So just to follow on from what you were saying statistically, Dan is saying Angus MacDonald, 16 league starts for Swindon Town Football Club. In that time, we played 16, won 7, drew 5, lost 4, and we got 26 points, 1.62 points per game. We've kept 6 clean sheets and we only conceded 15 goals in that time. In Dan's view, the record speaks for itself. The man can defend and we're better with him. I think the interesting thing there, Dan, is, I don't know, I'll just go back to what some of the guys were saying. In my view, and I don't know, the games where Angus was there, I was kind of, when I first saw him go out on the pitch and warming up early in the season, I was expecting him to be, someone mentioned earlier about Sean Taylor. That's kind of what I was expecting, like a big, commanding, barking leader out the back. And what we ended up with is a little bit more akin to what Joe was saying, like a little bit more of a kind of silky championship level defender. And I'm not sure whether or not he fancied the rigours of League Two. And And I'm not being, I'm not being like super disparaging. And I'd have this conversation with him. It's just, I still think like he gives the impression he's one of those defenders that probably could still do a job like a division or two up. And actually, some of the games that he's engaging with, some of the pitches he's playing in, some of the grounds that he's having to visit, maybe just wasn't for him.
Let's not kid ourselves here. I'd rather be playing and watching Championship football than League Two football. It's absolute shit, and you've got to be. I'm not saying this in a horrible way, but you've got to be somewhat agricultural as a footballer to really succeed in this division. I think Johnny Williams last year was almost too good for himself. Like, he just got kicked to bits, and it's a specialist one, isn't it? It's a crap. It's a cesspit of a division.
But Joey, great on the deck, was he? Like I said, the problem with Angus was it seemed to be that it took him 20 minutes every game to sort of get into, sort of find his range, find his game, get into his stride. And there were some performances that really were decent. Like, you could see there's a good player in there.
But
and to Dan's
one thing
point,
I'll say though, Hannah's about MacDonald, that I particularly is after Sino Khan got sent off at Grimsby. So for that last 25 minutes away at Grimsby when we were under the cosh, he was absolutely immense. And then at the end, he just taunted their crowd. I think for me that was probably the best half hour of his Swindon career. But it was when we had backs against the wall, it was about proper defending. He was immense.
Oh, yeah, I was going to mention that. I was also going to mention Northampton as well when we came under the cosh there as well. He was immense and stood up tall.
Claire,
we can continue to talk about Angus, but the main thing here tonight is we need to get a replacement of his stature in the game. I think a 30-year-old, at least 26-year-old plus defender. Obviously, we've got the lad from Tottenham rumoured to be interest. He's played two professional games in his career. We really do need to have someone coming in tonight to replace the hole that Angus has left in our squad.
Well, look, Claire, we've had a few more tweets come in. Claire Furnell was just followed on from Dan's tweet by saying, Dan does love Angus. There you go, Dan. Yeah, I'm not sure whether she's in your camp, mate, but she certainly keeps an eye on your tweet output. And Taser's followed up again by saying, if MacDonald doesn't fancy League Two, then he's made an awful decision to go to the SPL. I mean, look, it's a fair point Taser raised there, isn't it? I mean, when McCurdy went to Hibernian, I think the general consensus was that's a huge opportunity and a big move for him. One of Scottish football's big institutions, and I think Angus is in a similar spot. Aberdeen have played European football, obviously. Back in the day, Sir Alex Ferguson made his name at Aberdeen. Aberdeen are one of the big four, big five clubs in Scottish football. Huge stadium. Really big following. Obviously, a little bit of a kind of UK footballing outpost right up there in the north. But at the same time, they're a club that are steeped in tradition. So that's, in that sense, if this was Angus kind of looking at this and going, right, I want a big stage to kind of, ply my trade in. Outstanding. Good luck to you. But he's going to Aberdeen at a very, very difficult time. I mean, to Tate's point, not only are you going up for the rigours of the SPL, but, Aberdeen, we've all seen recently, they've just been dumped unceremoniously out of the cup by proper non-league minnows. They've got real defensive problems. They haven't got a manager. So it's a very, very unsettling time up at Aberdeen. So we wish Angus all the best, but he's going to be one of those players. We're not, put it this way, I never felt inclined to create a mug with Angus's face on there. There you go. Does that tell its own story?
I think it says it all, doesn't it? I've just seen a tweet. Sorry, I've just seen a tweet as an update from Football Insider. Swindon Town are closing in on a deal to sign Tottenham defender Malachi Fagan-Walcott. The League Two side are pushing through to get the permanent deal over the line by the 11 p.m. deadline. So that's one we should be expecting then, because obviously it's been rumoured, and Football Insider are very good on EFL transfers. So we'll take their word that he's going to come in. But even if he comes in, I think we need another defender in. I think we needed one in before Angus left, let alone to replace him.
I agree, especially considering Boundary's retired as well, all but retired anyway.
We got
he's kind of
Harry's
been
as
running
well
one
out
short.
for the season.
Yeah. Oh, is he out for the season? Is he?
I'm pretty sure he's out for the season.
Oh, great. How tall is this new centre back? Out of interest,
6'2". He's 6'2".
Okay.
20-year-old 6'2". He's played. I think he played once for Spurs away at Leipzig in the Champions League and they lost 3-0. But
right.
well, it's Leipzig aren't a bad team, are they?
Yeah, he's a bit of a beanpole, is the boy. But if anyone calls him anything other than Malachi moving forward, you're going to have me to answer to.
Is it Malachi? I thought Malachi would have been Kai, not Chi.
Don't come at me, Joseph. That's all I'm going to say. Don't come at me. I'm
Mal.
Mal. There you go. Like Mal Benning.
Mal. Let's just call him Mal. That's a good 80s footballer name. I'll meet you in the middle with that one. We're going to call him Mal. Right. But no, we wish him all the best. And we do believe that rumour does have it that, he's either in the building or has been in the building. And we're hoping for an announcement at some point before the clock strikes midnight. So let's keep our eyes open. Obviously, the deadline itself slams shut at 11. But as per last year, we're going to keep the show rolling through until midnight because there will be late deals, as the last window proved with Mr. McCurdy.
Hannah, speaking of beanpoles, have we got a little moment to speak about a Mr. Lewis Ward?
Look, we're going to come on to that because there's a few rumours out and about. But before we do that, I just wanted to round up some of these other tweets that have been coming in. So Jason's tweeted, hello, Jason. Good evening to you. Jason says, Reed and MacDonald didn't want to leave. It's financial. Well, allegedly, I think is the word you're missing off there, Jason. Allegedly. But, listen, I think, certainly from Lou Reed's point of view, very, very, very popular player. Very popular around the club. I think most fans have sort of drawn their own conclusions, that certainly fans that I've spoken to, that if you look at a lad like Louis, very, very popular, didn't give the impression that he wanted to leave in a hurry. I think, running down his contract, or certainly his contract was coming to an end at the end of this year. And if you haven't got your kind of new deal in place by the time you enter the final year, you kind of, I don't know. For me, on a human level, I can just imagine conversations about what is available versus what Louis on last year's form maybe thought he was owed or could earn at Swindon Town Football Club. All that stuff comes to the fore, doesn't it? But listen, there's no use crying over spilt milk. Unfortunately, both of them are gone, and I mean, it is a shame. I'd like to think that that we'd see we could see Reedy back at some point, but I think I don't think it'll be the case with Angus, but Reedy's got age on his side. Claire's tweeted again, both to tell us that she's certainly not in Dan Hunt's camp, which I'm sure will cheer Dan up. Claire, what a lovely thing to say. But also to say, she's asking, is Clayton back this weekend? Does anyone know? What's you guys, you've all got your ear close to the ground. I believe he's back this weekend. We're certainly expected to be in the squad.
Yeah, Andre mentioned earlier that the plan was that it would be available this weekend if without any setbacks.
Okay, I hope that answers that for you, Claire. Well, Taser's tweet again. Taser, stop being a rascal. Taser's saying George Frankham has just this minute been released by Crawley. Could be fun just to wind them up. Experienced pro too. I kind of get the sentiment, Taze, but if we're still fishing around a bucket that's got George Frankham in it, I think there's something seriously wrong with our recruitment. Jason is also tweeting, just to sort of follow up what we were saying earlier, saying that he hears that Malachi Fagan-Walcott has been done. Yeah, it seems that a few people are hearing that rumour as well. H the Duck has got on the Jason Lane groovy train and has both liked and retweeted that very post, which is good to hear. Steve, here we are. So Steve has just tweeted now saying that MacDonald told some supporters that allegedly the Reed deal was financial. Yeah, I think we just kind of touched on that, Steve. So, listen, it kind of is what it is, right? All right, but look, let's get into some of these rumours because we've had certainly we're going to come on to. We've got both rumours and we've got STFC and ex-STFC boys on the move, as we like to do in our deadline shows, and we're going to kick off with a certain Michael Doughty, who just before we came on air went on Instagram and posted a quite mercurial and cryptic post where he had the look of a man that knows a lot more than I do. He had a wry smile on his face, which I felt rather comforting, almost like somebody was giving me a delightful foot massage with a little cheeky wink. And Liam Collett has tweeted to ask, do we have any news on the Doughty investment? Now, that's really interesting, Liam, because obviously there were lots of people that were asking the question, are we going to see Michael Doughty with his boots back on? I think that is going to be stretching it a bit. However, for those that aren't aware, obviously our ex-midfielder, Michael Doughty, very wealthy son of the late former Nottingham Forest owner, Nigel Doughty, a multi-millionaire owner of Nottingham Forest. And now Michael runs Hilo Athletic, which is a technical sports brand producing running wear, but with a distinctly sustainable twist to their business model. So it's interesting that you use the word investment, Liam, but yet you stop short of trying to share anything further. I think there's going to be a lot more. There's going to be a lot more on that front tomorrow. Clearly, a lot more news breaking. But how good is it, Joe? I said before, it's like seeing Doubts talking like that on his Instagram, on that Instagram video, which was lovingly shared to us and we lovingly retweeted. It's like slipping on a comfortable pair of shoes, isn't it? Ironic, comfortable pair of running shoes that you know are never going to let you down and enable you to go and run a half marathon. What a beautiful moment it was to see that the hairy Wiltshire Perlo just winking at the camera and giving this Ronaldinho hand signs at us. A wonderful thing.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I think, he's maybe my favourite Swindon player of the last 10 years. To be fair, I think Owen Doyle probably comes above him, but he's up there. He's definitely up there. He's got a really different backstory to a lot of footballers that we'll see. Obviously, he's come from a position of private education and a different upbringing to a lot of us. But he instantly at the club in his first loan spell, he just found a connection with the football club. He's no stranger in admitting that he kept returning to the club because it's the one place he felt like he was at home. And I mean, my God, he was a good footballer. The left foot of just the gods in League Two. He made League Two look like an absolute doddle. I said earlier on, actually, I'm probably contradicting myself here. I said earlier on that it takes a certain kind of ruggedness and nastiness to play League Two. Michael Doughty, it didn't look like it affected him. We called him the Wiltshire Pirlo for a reason. He played the game at a certain pace that didn't look like it fazed him. He looked like he had an extra 5 seconds on the ball than anyone else in the field. I mean, the guy is an absolute cult hero at the football club, and just to see him back at the club doing whatever it is that he's going to be doing, that's just it's perfect, isn't it? That's all you want for your football club is to have people that you like around it, and Michael Doughty is undoubtedly, and I've not said that on purpose, one of those people that you'd like to be in and around your football club, whether that's in investment terms, coaching, working at the club, or playing for it.
Well, to quote Rach, who's just tweeted us, good evening, Rach. She says, God, I miss Doughty so much. He'd be welcome back in any capacity. Now, I'll tell you what, I've been quite outspoken about the club's pitiful record of ensuring that ex-players and legends of the football club are in and around the kind of match day experience. There's always been the odd sort of sprinkling of 3 or 4 faces that we get used to seeing, the likes of your Phil Kings, Frazer Digby comes back on occasion, Paul Bowden can be seen on occasion. And obviously from a coaching point of view, the late Alan McLaughlin, of course, returned to the club and did wonders with the academy. And of course, Lee Peacock is treading a similar path. But when you think, I think back to two of the greatest sides that I can think of, 89-90 and the 1993 side. And I think how many of those players, aren't really involved. And obviously during the Di Canio years, Andrew Fitton and co were big on having the old wooden cricket ball erected, for want of a better word, inside the club by the sponsors' boxes. And it was, we had a little run of club ties being handed out and people being invited back, which kind of felt nice, but we never really kind of seemed to follow that up. I think if Michael is coming back as an investor, and come on, let's read between the lines. That's clearly what's happening here. It's very much kind of, we're getting our cake and eat it in respect to what I just said, aren't we? A bona fide fan favourite. The word legend gets used an awful lot, but I mean, by Christ, he gave us some very, very special memories. So I love the idea of Douts coming back. Potentially putting some money into the club. I'm sure anything Michael does is going to be about innovation. You've only got to look at what Hilo's business model is. And, that word sustainable, I think, is absolutely key. In my last corporate role, it was at the start of a big shift towards corporate social responsibility and businesses being sustainable and businesses being kind of eco-friendly and having a big drive in that way. And I don't think that's an area Swindon have ever necessarily played in. And I'd like to think that if that's something that Michael comes back and assists in, it would feel a little less contrived than what's going on up the road, where Duncan Ferguson is being force-fed vegan burgers. I don't know how you feel about that, Gabs, but it would be lovely to have Douts back, kind of doing it in a far more, feels to me, kind of authentic but very sporting manner.
To be fair, I have a fair few of his running trainers, actually. They're extremely comfy. To be honest, even if it's just the training gear or if it's just him selling his Hilo brand in the shop, to be honest, it'd be good, and to be honest, it's well deserved. But I actually jokingly said to Niall earlier, what happens if it's the Hilo County Ground?
Wouldn't that be lovely? Wouldn't that be lovely? Well, see, this is the thing. I mean, I'm pretty sure when we renewed last summer, did we not? We renewed with Puma as our technical partner for another 3 years. So I don't necessarily think, I mean, those deals can be usurped. Those deals can be, replaced. Obviously, a certain sort of, penalty fees being made and all the rest of it. And we don't know what the intricacies of any arrangements are with Puma. But, I mean, listen, if I think this is the thing, certainly, whilst Hilo doesn't necessarily at the moment have the kind of cachet of a Nike, an Adidas or a Puma, if you're a youth looking to, buy kind of, eye-catching sportswear, or if you're an adult that likes to wear performance sportswear, I don't think Hilo's quite got that kind of penetration. But I think once people realise that that's the company that Michael Doughty owns, and I think once that story's sold, I'm sure Swindon Town could be a significant springboard for Hilo. I can imagine if they came in as a technical partner, if not now, then a little further down the line. It's only going to benefit both parties, isn't it? Silent.
Sorry, you caught me off guard there. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, okay. It's interesting. I've just been so Joe, you've just picked up on a bit of socials from Michael Doughty, where he's saying here, you've said, it says it all. It says, a couple of years ago, this is Michael himself, a couple of years ago, I made a decision from the heart to join a team that I love and I care deeply about. My teammates, the people who work for this club and the fans deserve to enjoy this moment. It's not the way that we want to finish, but a reminder that we are only so much in control of life and to enjoy the journey. And oh, what a journey, what a year. To finish as champions, albeit in the most unique circumstances, still feels amazing. In these moments that remind me, it's these moments that remind me why I love the sport of football. Thank you to all of those involved in official STFC. You deserve it. 3 hearts. So that's obviously Michael having put that out just after Swindon Town won the league. And obviously not long after Michael decided to hang up his boots. But yeah, it clearly shows his depth of affection that he holds for Swindon Town. You can't not benefit from having people like that back at your football club. And the amount of people that are jumping on Rachel's tweet saying, God, I miss Doughty so much as I'm speaking, pretty much reflects all of that. Yeah, you're not alone, Rachel, in that sentiment. You're not alone. So Michael Doughty, everybody, keep your eyes on the socials tomorrow. Michael's not on Twitter, but obviously the football club are, as are we. And I'm sure if there is any news that breaks, we're in and around the club, and more on that later, but we're in and around the club tomorrow. So as and how we're made aware of any stories, anything significant, we will also be releasing. But keep an eye on if you're on Instagram. Michael's prolific on Instagram, so make sure you're giving Michael Doughty and Hilo a follow, and just keep an eye on breaking news tomorrow. So there is another rumour. We sort of touched on it a little bit earlier, and that rumour is Ellis Iandolo to Crawley. Ellis Iandolo to Crawley. Well, look, Jason, you've just rejoined us. How sad would you be if you lost Ellis Iandolo to Crawley?
Sorry, guys, I had problems. Yeah, Ellis to Crawley. What? I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, Ellis hasn't been in the best of form this year. Let's all say it how it is. But longest serving player. I feel sad.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, there has been some very, very strong rumours. I don't think anything's been confirmed yet, unless someone wants to confirm that whilst we've been talking tonight, something's been agreed. I don't think it has. But I think, yeah, to your point, Jason, like, I don't know. I don't know whether it's healthy to be losing, like, so many club men in a window, like, sort of, your senior pros. Whilst Ellis is, I mean, he's not old, but he's not a spring chicken. He's kind of like, your middle of the road kind of pro, isn't he? And some of the form that we saw in League Two from him last season, when he played on the left-hand side of midfield, I've said this so many times in the last few weeks, like, Ellis was one of the real kind of first name on the team sheet individuals. So I don't know. We know there's a player. We know there is a player in there. I think he's struggled this season. But how many times when we've spoken to pros have they said, like, about the importance of pre-season? And Ellis has missed pretty much all of pre-season with injury, and then now he's kind of spending this season chasing his tail. I still think Ellis is going to be a player that, hopefully get yourself through the end of this season unscathed, get a good pre-season under your belt next year, and then next year is Ellis's year. I think the other problem with Ellis is, of course, that recurring theme about his versatility. I mean, like, a prime example on Saturday. I mean, I don't know how you feel about it. I mean, Max, you've just joined us. Good evening, pal. How difficult was it seeing Ellis, like, slotting in a left centre back at the weekend, when we all know that his best position is left side of midfield?
Yeah, it's one of those. Oh, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, got you loud and clear, buddy.
Oh, good. Sorry, just testing out. Yeah, it's hard for him because obviously, I think a lot of us agree that his best position is that left side of midfield, and he does an okay job at left back, be it a little questionably position wise. But I think centre back, he's just going to be overwhelmed in that position, and it does show the sort of lack of depth we have there. And it's good to have him about because he'll slot in wherever he's needed, and he'll work hard and do an okay job. But yeah, I think it's harmed the fans' perception of him, especially this season, which I think is why you're seeing more people sort of turn on him. And I think a bit unfairly, personally, but I've always been a sort of big fan of him when he was coming into the team in that sort of Richie Wellens year, and he had to overcome that big injury. And I just think he's worth having around the squad, personally.
Yeah, I'm. Do you know what, Max? I'm with you. I mean, the thing that really frustrates me about Ellis is it always seems like he gets to, like, a kind of peak of form where you're like, bloody hell, Ellis is a player. Like, we always knew there was a player in there. And then the poor guy gets injured, and then he kind of fights his way to the top of that mountain again. And then there's another injury comes along that seems to sort of knock him off his stride. But I've had quite a lot of tweets on Ellis already. So Jason's tweeted just to say Ellis is not confirmed. Negotiations are still ongoing. Dean's tweeted saying that the form that I referred to. So Dean saying the form last year was a purple patch, though, Hannah's. Not to have a pop at Ellis, but if we want to push for top 3, we need better. Sarah's tweeted to say, nostalgically, I'd love a testimonial for Ellis. Yes, he's not played his best this season, but he's always been there, and I'd 100% put him in a matchday squad every time. Heart-ruling head here. Steve's tweeted to say Ellis has been a scapegoat all season. But to your point, Max, about, I think Sarah makes a good point, and I'm of the same sort of opinion, really. I think to have someone as versatile as Ellis, even though it's probably not ideal for his career, on a selfish level, I'd have Ellis on the bench like every time, because I just think he can just fill so many options. And players like that, you know, that can play in so many positions are quite a rarity. So, listen, I mean, for me, I'd be very, very sad to see Ellis go. And someone I'd be really sad to see go. I think how many Swindon Town hearts, if we're all honest with each other, dear listeners, were in our throats this morning when we woke up to Sky Sports news declaring that Johnny Williams was departing for Hibs, or that we were in negotiations with Hibs, which was then quickly replaced by the news that there had been a bid which Swindon Town had turned down. However, we kind of feel like we've been here before with Hibs, don't we? Hence the reason we're going to be running our show on till midnight tonight. So Johnny Williams, top scorer this season, renaissance man in terms of his career. I mean, look, somebody sort of step in and eulogise for me around Johnny Williams, and indeed talk about the downsides of Johnny Williams, because, I mean, I don't know. I'm just going to stop talking because I've got so much I could say about
I'll
him.
butt in, Hannah's.
Johnny Williams plays at the World Cup. He plays for Wales. He's 29 years old. He's played in the Premier League and the Championship most of his career. That he's not, honestly, having him in League Two is an absolute embarrassment of riches. He's a joke. He's such a good footballer. He's also adapted to the style of League Two really well. Last season, obviously, he struggled with getting his ankles kicked off his feet for at least the first half of the season. I think this year he's really learnt to sort of ride challenges and sort of expect and premeditate defenders in this division. I think he's been sensational this year, and he's listening tonight. Dan, your tweet last night basically ruined my night's sleep last night. But genuinely, I saw it. My heart was just like, yeah, it was in my throat. It was horrible. I could see it coming. And why is it always Hibs? Why have they got a fetish for Swindon Town players?
Here's a little thought for you. Do you think, I mean, as well as his obvious ability, do you think Hibs might also be quite keen on Johnny, because they know he was really, really close with Harry McCurdy? And if you're going to get the best out of someone like McCurdy, to bring in one of his kind of former wingmen to keep half an eye on him and keep him on the straight and narrow would be a really smart move.
Go and get Jack Payne. I don't care.
Listen, I'm not saying I want it to happen, but if you think about it, you know, being realistic, Johnny's playing for a League Two team. He's got about 6 months left on his contract. They're going to probably pick him up for between 50 to 100 grand, top whack. And for a club of Hibs' size to invest that much on potentially reigniting a signing that clearly isn't working for them at the moment in Harry McCurdy, I mean, that could end up being a masterstroke for them. Plus, all the performance reasons that you've brought to the table, Joe. Like, it's a no-brainer.
Johnny Williams he's if you've got 2 or 3 years in his contract, he's worth somewhere between 500k and £1 million. Genuinely, I think maybe close to 500, but he's certainly nothing to be sniffed at in terms of a footballer. He's 29 years old. He's an international. He's at his prime. You know, if you can get him for 100k right now, Hibs would do it in a heartbeat.
Of course they would.
That 100k, if we can get promoted this year, that 100k is more valuable to us. Promotion means more to us than the £100,000 would.
I'm not being funny as well.
And promotion might entice him to stay.
I think he wants to stay. What he was saying to Andrew Hawes last week, when he was saying, you know, it's not been discussed in terms of a contract situation. He said, of course, it comes down to money, but ultimately, he's really enjoyed his time at Swindon, and he feels like he's got a good connection here. He's comfortable here. He's happy. He said, I mean, he might have said the words that he wanted to sign a new contract. I can't quite remember, but I know he certainly alluded to that.
Yeah. Well, Ellis, sorry, mate. I think you've been trying to
I
chirp in
have.
for the last
Everyone
couple of
keeps butting in.
minutes. Respect for you.
What was I saying? Yeah. I'm not being funny. When yeah, sorry.
Ellis, just remind everybody that you're the one that gets paid to get punched in the face. So just remind them all you're a boxer. It does tend to quiet a room when you.
Yeah, I will next time. No, but I couldn't interrupt Joe's rant there. He went off on one, but yeah. When you've signed the likes of when you've sold the likes of Ben Gladwin and Angus MacDonald, so you sold our captain, you sold Ben Gladwin, one of our seasoned pros. Looking at shipping off Iandolo, another player that's done the rounds in League Two. You can't be selling Johnny Williams. We're low on experienced players. We've got Charlie Austin up front. Apart from that, the rest of our squad is probably below the age of 24. You can't. You just can't sell Johnny Williams.
Ellis, where else Johnny Williams is invaluable as well? Is just as a good old fashioned squad man. They talk about him being the kind of vibe meister of the Wales team. It's quite clear that he's got that same level of profile and popularity around the Swindon players. I mean, look at the way they all celebrated the goal with him on Saturday. You can't fake that kind of emotion and that level of popularity. And I mean, we've spoken to Johnny off air on a number of occasions. There's a real genuine affection for Swindon Town Football Club. He's got a great rapport with the supporters. He's got a great rapport with his teammates, and he's savvy as well. Savvy senior pro. He knows what to say at the right times. He's very level-headed. He's very cool, calm, and collected. I'm with you. I mean, I just think there is not a cat and hell's chance that you're getting your money's worth, even if you do pocket 50 to 100 grand between now and the end of the year. That feels to me like, to quote a low strangerism, and I believe this is one of yours, Dan, that money lust is, I'm sorry, there comes a time where you've got to kind of look at that and go, what are you going to lose from the supporter base in terms of support and morale that you honestly you want to try and put a price on it? There is no way that it is worth to suffer the sinking feeling amongst the supporter base and potentially the damage of not having that vibe meister amongst the squad. I'm sorry, that feels to me that it's worth more than 50 to 100 grand, which unfortunately is all that we're likely to get for him. But we're literally getting so many tweets rolling in relation to the last couple of players we're talking about, well, including Doughty. So Steve Haynes has tweeted, "Hello, Steve. Good evening to you." Steve says, "Doughty coming back to town, Charlie coming home. My QPR supporting daughter is becoming a Town fan. Well, should be very welcome, Steve. Swell those numbers. I'm sure Clem will quite happily drive a van round to your house and sell her a season ticket." A Swindon boy, good evening to you, Louis. Louis says, "I thought Iandolo would have developed a little more by now, seeing how long he's been with us. Sadly, goes to show how much injuries can hinder development." Yeah, I think that kind of taps into some of the stuff we were saying earlier, Louis, to be frank. Sarah's tweeted to say, "Hannah's don't even mention Johnny Esther. If we don't speak it into existence, it can't happen." Yeah, very good point, Sarah, and I'm kind of with you on that. Steve's tweeted to say, "Johnny Williams is a massive player for us." Yep, I think that's a universal sentiment, Steve. And I would repeat that. Whoever else wants to tweet, I'll say that until the powers that be finally will listen. Jason's tweeted again to say a second bid has been turned down from Hibs, but there is a third improved bid expected. I'm not following Sky Sports, Jason. It'd be interesting to know what your source is on that, if you would care to share. Peter Ford has tweeted. Peter Ford has tweeted and says, "Stats seem good. Agreed. Such a small sample size, though." This is talking about Angus MacDonald. "I don't think he was very good. Many will, I am sure, argue that he was all right. He certainly has the experienced centre-back build. I always felt we were not playing flowing, attacking football with him playing." Peter, I, for one, agree with you. What else we got? We have got Jason Lane is cackling with delight, Joe, at your suggestion that we might get anywhere near 500,000 to $1 million. He's saying no chance of that. Louis tweeted to say Swindon might not thank me, but get the contract out, put it on the table, and let Johnny Esther sign it. Let him write whatever numbers he wants to put on there. Give him what he's done since he's come in, and let him sign the contract and go. Yeah, I'm sure Clem's not going to thank you for that, but I like the sentiment nonetheless. And Pete Hayward has tweeted. Pete said, Ellis Holloway, you hit the nail on the head, and I totally agree. We need the experience as well as the youth in this division to have any chance of getting promotion. Thank you, Pete. Lovely to hear from you. So there we are. That's a bit of Ellis Iandolo. Now, and a bit of Johnny Williams. There's been some light chat about Tommy Adeloye potentially returning to Scotland or leaving the county ground on loan. I mean, it's a frustrating one, isn't it? I don't know if anyone wants to jump on Tommy Adeloye. I mean, after Barrow, there was a lot of sympathy poured in his direction. It was a chance that most people felt that they would have buried themselves if they were given the opportunity. But there was a real, what's the word for it? An outpouring of support and a willingness to want to see that young man get another opportunity, which just hasn't really happened, does it, post Barrow? Does anyone want to chip in? Give me your thoughts on Tommy.
Well,
These days around seem.
I will, Hannah's. When you've got the likes of Charlie Austin, Luke Jeffcott, Jake Wakeley, and Hepburn Murphy, you're gonna have to be some player to sneak your way into the squad. It hasn't worked out for him. He hasn't really been given the opportunity, but he's not going to be picked in front of Charlie Austin. He's not going to be picked in front of Hepburn Murphy or Jake Wakelin. So, he's in a tough position. I think he's certainly a player I'll be looking at sending out on loan because, he's not going to be playing. So it's pointless him just being sat there doing nothing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Even if he remains our asset for a while, you at least want the boy out there scoring goals. I mean, listen, I maintain, I still find it very, very hard. Like I see Tommy in the warm-ups, and I think I watch his finishing, and I think, I'm speaking as a retired goalkeeper, he looks absolutely deadly. But it's just not seemed to get the opportunities to kind of break into the side and any kind of meaningful threat to League Two defenders. It must be quite hard for him though, because he's just not getting a run of games. So at least get him out to a Supermarine or get him out to a Chippenham, or get him out to a Banbury or someone along those lines and get him scoring goals.
The thing is, Hannah, he's not a 19-year-old lad. He's 27 in a few weeks or 2 weeks' time.
Fairness though, Joe, all right, that's a bit of a misnomer though, because a classic example of that would be Ian Wright, right? So Ian Wright spent an awful lot of his time, Dulwich Hamlet, Greenwich Borough, painting and decorating, and then got a late start. I think it was about 24 when he broke through at Palace. And by the time that he actually got into the Palace side, he was getting old, he was cracking on a bit. Never joined Arsenal until he was 28 years old. And at that point, you could see every single goal he was making up for lost time, every single strike. I don't know. Listen, I mean, I've spoken to people that have been that aren't part of the club full time, but have been up at the training ground and have watched training, have seen the rapport that he's got with players, and seen the way that he finishes chances in training. And the general consensus is the guy looks like a beast, but it just hasn't had that run of chances. So there's obviously something that's preventing it. But
it's one of those as well. From what we understand, or from what I'm not. I can't say what he's on, but I would understand that he is one of the highest paid players of the squad as well. So, in terms of a wage budget, you can't be affording to pay. If he's in your top 5 or even your top 11 highest paid players, if he's not starting more than 3 games a season, I'm not even sure he started 1. It's not viable. You can't be doing it. Full sentiment and stuff to the lad. I want him to do well. If he can come into the team next week and score a hat-trick every game, then bloody hell, we've got a player on our hands. But in terms of just as a business, your assets, you need to put your money into your biggest assets, and he's just not that at the minute.
I think he's been handled quite poorly, to be honest, because I'm looking at his stats now. He's had one start, so like you say, he's just started once, and he's only played 171 minutes. I think he was, even before Austin came in, I think he was a victim of Lindsey's poor tactical substitutions, where he'd get on for 5 minutes, if that, and there's not much you can really do with that. If you're chasing a game, then you're going to struggle anyway, and if you're seeing a game out, then you're not going to get as many opportunities because you're focused. You're going to take less risks. So I think he's been a bit of a victim of that. But I think I agree with Joe that if he's one of the high earners,
I was going to say maybe a new manager. Someone coming in, put an arm around him, and go right. Okay, it's a fresh slate now. You're not leaving the club. We haven't been able to sell you, or we haven't been able to agree anything. Just crack on. Everyone gets a fresh start. If there's 3 strikers at the club, if there's an injury, you're closer to being in the team.
Yeah. But this is the thing, I genuinely don't feel, Gabs, that the guys had a proper chance. So I can see why people have slated him. I mean, at the start of the season, when people were going in quite hard on him, my general consensus was, I couldn't see it. Now, again, I spent my life as a goalkeeper, trying to keep the likes of him quiet. But I was watching him, and I was kind of going, what is it that other people are seeing in the small amounts of time that they're getting that are putting people off of him? And I'm with you, Gabs. I can't help but think, because we don't seem to have other players like him sort of in the building, if you know what I mean, at the moment. I mean, obviously, we've still got a few hours left. We've got an hour and a half. Well, we've actually got about half an hour left of this window, but potentially an hour and a half with some late twists. But yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know. I mean, the guy, ultimately, I know the guy scored goals for Ayr United, in one of the lower leagues up in Scotland, but I don't know. He's been brought to the club for a reason. I would send him off, get him out on loan. If he scores a load of goals, bring him back in. Who knows? But to me, I don't know. It's still one of the great. He's a bit of an outlier, and he's just not getting his opportunity. Someone that didn't get an opportunity at Swindon Town, but he's certainly taken his opportunity with both hands at Chippenham, is one of our own, Harry Parsons. I mean, he's another one, isn't he? I mean, I think it's unlikely we're going to see Harry back at the football club this season, but there's been some chat that he may well be making the move to Chippenham permanently. Has anyone heard anything about that? Would you be sad to see the back of Harry?
Go on.
Oh, my mic's off. Sorry. I was just gonna say, he's sort of another player that he's not up to the quality of the first team. So he's not going to get minutes here. He's obviously getting minutes at Chippenham, scoring goals there. I personally think it would be a good deal for him to move there permanently, because now we've got Charlie Austin in, Jake Wakely and Hepburn Murphy. Again, it's going to be tough for him to get in the squad. So yeah, if I was him, I'd be looking at a permanent move there.
I mean, Chris, the problem he's got, of course, is we're talking about Tommy Adloy struggling to get a game, and Harry's clearly the Adloy in the second order, isn't he? So the writing's on the wall in the short term.
Well, I was going to think that I think the best thing to look at the stage of his career that Harry Parsons is at, he needs to play games. And if he stays at Swindon, he's not going to play games. He's behind too many people. And if he does, he's going to get 5 minutes as well. And a lot of the time, it's really, he hasn't really showed too much that he's level of League One, League Two. So would it be actually best for us to even play Carnu ahead of him? I think it's in his best interest, really, to move to someone in the conference, whether it's conference, full conference or conference north or south. I think that's what he needs to do. Because he needs to play games.
I've got 2 words for you, Chris. Scott Twine.
Well, that's it, though, isn't it? It's like Scott Twine is one of those players who had such technical ability. You could see it even when he came on in the early days, when he was getting bit part minutes under Wellens. he just had such great technical ability. He could, he wasn't necessarily a striker or a winger or a number 10, but you could tell there was a player there. And unfortunately for Harry Parsons, I don't think we've seen that. It's the curse of the striker. If you're not scoring goals, what a use of you are you to the team? And I think the great players or the players that make it in the game, they have some other use. They show some other technical ability. They have something about them that you go, oh, what, that kid, or I don't know, he's a bit special. I just don't think Harry has shown that yet.
Well, Sound Trauma's tweeted to say, junior pros at Swindon seem to get a raw deal. We messed up Twine and lots of good prospects like Minnow. Hopefully, Jody Morris sorts it out. It's a good point, isn't it? I mean, Jody Morris with his background in under-23s coaching at Chelsea, and not just coaching, but record-breaking levels of success. If you are a Harry Parsons and, a Harrison Minturn and a Morgan Roberts, who has been bought to the club rather than come up through the ranks. But then obviously if you're an Abu Kanu, an Adam Hart, Sonny Hart, you're going to be looking at that situation and you're going to be saying, I'll tell you what, quite fancy him to give me a chance. All I've got to do is just show what I've got. So I think it's an interesting point about Jody Morris and some of these youngsters that we're talking about. I'm sure Harry Parsons probably is, to your point, Chris, if I was Harry Parsons, I'd probably be looking to stay out the Chippenham for the end of the season, score loads of goals, and then see what happens in pre-season if I get pulled back. But worst case scenario, wherever he goes, obviously goals are always going to be something that sort of turn people's heads. So if he finishes the season out at Chippenham, scores an absolute sackload, sure as eggs is eggs, the future will take care of itself for Harry, whether that's with us or with someone else. And I've just mentioned more.
I was going to say the other thing, though, obviously, as we've referenced him to Twine, Scott Twine was hovering around our youth team for 2 or 3 years. And then he went to, obviously, he did Chippenham, I think he even did Waterford, didn't he? And then he did Newport. And that's when he really, really took off. So, and players develop at different ages. But, like Jason said, Twine always had that something that we haven't seen with Parsons. So I do think it might be best interest for all parties for him to move on.
So we've had a lovely tweet from the Modfather. Good evening, Modfather79, who says, keeping hold of Sol Bryn is the best thing of this transfer window. Luckily, he wasn't recalled and loaned out at a high level. And of course, the return of Charlie Austin. Couldn't care less about who else comes or goes. What a luxurious position for you to be in, Modfather. I wish I could be as cool as you and your particular cucumber. So Liam's tweeted to say, Slick Ricky Aguiar, of course, is not in the Torquay squad tonight. Hopefully Morris has a look at him. Yeah, I think Ricky Aguiar is certainly somebody that I don't think there's a town fan on this planet that would be of the opinion that Ricky should be down at Torquay with a view to staying there permanently. And I think we saw glimpses of him last season that we know there's a real player there, both in terms of his running game, passing game, shooting game, but also his set-piece delivery as well, which he is renowned for. Hello, Keegan. Good evening to you. Keegan's just tweeted saying ex-Town player, which we're about to come on to, funny enough, the ex-Town boys. Kellen Gordon has just signed for Crawley on an 18-month deal. And H the Duck has just tweeted to say, yes, bring back Slick Rick, please. Yeah, certainly my daughter Ashley is a big fan, and there will be no complaints in the Hanrahan household. So, moving on. So we've still not got any updates on the Malachi Fagan-Walcott transfer as of yet, so we're keeping them peeled. But there's been quite a few Swindon Town and ex-Swindon Town players on the move, and we're just going to have a little rattle through those. So Brandon Cooper, as we know, has gone from Swansea to Forest Green. A real shame that we couldn't get hold of him, and joined at Forest Green, also departing Swansea, is ex-loanee Jordan Garrick, who's joined them permanently. Whilst Cooper's a loan, Jordan Garrick has signed permanently for Forest Green for Joe Vincent's favourite undisclosed fee. Whilst the next man was linked to us, mainly I think because he was Australian, and Massimo Luongo. made the switch from Middlesbrough to Ipswich. So he's been troubled with injury since he left Sheffield Wednesday as Massimo. And he's found himself leaving Teesside and making his way down to Suffolk, where he's going to be plying his trade for the Tractor Boys at Ipswich. Former Town centre-back Sean Morrison, a giant of a man that kid is, has made the switch from Cardiff to Rotherham on a free transfer. And I think we were all delighted for Jordan Lydon to see that he's been given a short-term deal at Leyton Orient with Richie Wellens. And we wish him nothing but the best. So championship winning midfielder Jordan Lydon, who of course had an ill-fated return from injury last season, has made his way to Leyton Orient on a short-term deal where he is going to be helping Richie Wellens' team get themselves out of League Two and into League One based on current form. Former Town loanee Tyrese Omotoy, who spent time on loan at Swindon Town from Norwich, has also joined Forest Green. What is it about Forest Green and ex-Town loanees? But he's joined them permanently on an undisclosed fee. Again, that word undisclosed has got Joe Vincent all weak at the knees. And another ex-Town centre-back is also on the move from Stoke to Sheffield Wednesday. It is, of course, the rascal that is Aidan Flint. No, Aidan. You go and take yourself to Sheffield Wednesday. You enjoy that as he edges his way further north back to the homeland from whence he came. Aston Villa starlet, former Town loanee Louis Barry, has switched from Villa to Salford. And one of the more controversial moves, which caused quite a ripple, particularly for the show that you are listening to right now, the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge. Tyler Smith has switched Hull for those Herberts up the A420. Can you believe it? His last meaningful act, really, for Swindon Town, scoring, of course, in that wonderful 2-1 victory. But then clearly, following careful scrutiny today, the entire world has decided that Sir Tom did score both goals, and that's now bolted on. Tyler Smith switching Hull City for those Herberts up the A420. And then we're going to get on to the topic of conversation, that is Lewis Ward, who rather weirdly, having departed the county ground for, we believe, a fee in the region of £50,000 earlier this season, Town's stopper from last season, Town's number one for large periods of last season, particularly at the back end of the season, found himself number 2 to Solbrinn, and then found himself travelling back down the M4, around the M25 and up the road to Surrey to sign for Sutton United. But he's just been released. It was quite a terse tweet from Sutton, I felt, which said, good luck wherever it is you're going. Now, obviously, at the moment, Town have only really got Solbrinn. Do we think, my wonderful panel, that Lewis Ward will consider coming back to Swindon Town, given that he left Swindon Town? Because I don't think he quite fancied the idea of being a number 2. Do we think we're going to see Lewis Ward back at the county ground? Who wants to run with that?
Well, I think it all depends if he's happy being a number 2 at Swindon, because he's certainly not getting in front of Solbrinn. And by the looks of it, Solbrinn's here for the rest of the season. So, you know, if his current form continues, I don't think Lewis Ward would even get an opportunity for a game. But if he's happy to come here as a number 2, then I think most fans would be pretty happy in taking him back.
So, Ellis, it's very interesting because Dean McMacken has just made a very, very interesting point, which is, could he go and sign for anyone else? I don't think he can. So thanks for raising that, Dean. It's a very, very good point. So, look, we're clearly in need of a senior backup goalkeeper. At the moment, I think, whilst it's brilliant experience, Scotland being on the bench, and I'm all for youth getting the opportunity, and you can certainly see young Jack's confidence is growing with every warm-up session he has before the games, and being around that first-team environment will do him the absolute world of good, and by all accounts, he's a very, very bright prospect. I think you're absolutely hitting the nail on the head here, Dean. At the moment, I think Lewis really if he wants to play, needs to come back to the county ground, doesn't he? would certainly be my understanding of the rules. So, Lewis Ward, yeah, I mean, does anyone else want to kind of like chip in about Lewis Ward before we move on?
I'll just be happy to see him back. We know he can do a solid job if he needs to be called upon, and he's familiar with the club. I assume that people at the club will be aware that he's available. So I don't see why not. I think we can now, because he's been released before the end of the wedding, we can sign him any time, right? So it's one of them.
Yeah, I think you're right. And James, hello, James. James has just tweeted to say, I can see Ward coming back. The issue around him leaving, as I understand it, was we kept him as number one and then gazumped him with Sol. If he signs with his eyes open that he'll be a number two, it makes sense to me. I mean, listen, I think, James, at the end of the day, you'd like to think, I can't remember the exact date of Sol getting called back. I think there is, if you've got him till the end of the season, there's like an expiry date for Sol being brought back. I think if the idea is that, look, I've said at the start of the season when it was the two of them vying for the spot, you should have two senior keepers going at it hammer and tong, and no one should be guaranteed that shirt. I don't think Sol's a maestro with a ball at his feet, but I think his distribution is a hell of a lot better than what we saw from Lewis. But equally, I think Lewis is an outstanding shot stopper and really commands his box. And certainly for me, it was the command of his box last season that saw him wrestle the shirt away from Jojo once Jojo came back from the African Cup of Nations and got a couple of big bundlings and led to him losing his spot in the side. So, I mean, yeah, listen, for me, I think if Lewis is available and he fancies it and he wants to come in and put the heat under Sol with the potential that, we may be parting company with Sol in the summer and that Lewis might have a run at it under slightly different circumstances next season. Well, that can't be a bad thing, can it? And to your point, guys, he's a senior pro, isn't he? What were we talking about earlier? And Max, let's not undercook it. He's, it's good to have senior pros in the building, Max, isn't it? Whether they're a goalkeeper or outfield, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like when you've got a young squad, you want a few older heads in there who know how to get through some tough situations. Especially someone like Ward, who went through the whole playoff thing last season. I think that's invaluable to have in the dressing room. And I think he'll be a big help for not just Copland, which is the obvious one, but I mean he's got more experience than Bryn, so he can probably come in and start working with him again and maybe elevate his game as well, because Sol will see it as competition, and that can only elevate his game as well. Yeah,
100%. So Wardy, if you're listening, pal, you left on really great terms. You're a very, very, very popular guy. We'd love to see you back at the county ground, and I'm sure Mildy's probably got that in the works as we speak. What else we got coming in? Loads of tweets coming in. Howler's tweeted, Chris, good evening, mate. Chris is just saying you would think that Ward would have something lined up if he got his contract cancelled. Yeah, completely agree, Chris. I think Sutton left it pretty open, as I mentioned earlier, to be honest with you. Sort of so open that it's pretty obvious he's got something lined up. And Matt's just tweeted, good evening, Matt. Matt's saying, do we know any other significant transfer occurred today? That is the transfer of the county ground. Oh, sorry. Do we know if the other significant transfer occurred today? That is the transfer of the county ground from Swindon Borough Council to STFC and the Trust. It's a very good question, Matt. We will beaver away in the background whilst one of my colleagues chats away. I will put the feelers out. But I know talking to members of the Trust on Saturday, it was all well on course. Everybody seemed quite happy with the progress. So I'll try and get that answer for you while we're still on air, Matt.
I've just seen, Hannah's little old Wrexham that are getting all the Sky Sports coverage in the world, all the FA Cup coverage live on telly. That the small non-league club Wrexham just signed Charlton's captain, that's a madness in the National League. I mean, I'm assuming he's probably be on like £10,000 a week. So, I mean, in terms of just a personal point of view, fair play to him. He's probably done quite well for himself. But you don't see they've signed two captains now from League One. They've signed Ben Tozer from Cheltenham, and now Owen. I think it's McConnell from. Yeah, Owen O'Connell from Charlton, who's played 19 games this season, started 19 games their captain. Come on now. I mean, there's put in some sort of fairly hefty finances into a football club to get promoted, but bloody hell, this has got to be a record for League One, League Two, let alone National League. They must be paying players like, I don't even know. What's Paul Mullen on, like 10 grand a week?
Well, they are really pumping the cash into the club, aren't they, at the moment? I mean, anyone that watched the game against Sheffield United a couple of nights back, you know, half the ground's been demolished and getting rebuilt at the moment. You know what? Fair play to them is all I can say. You know, Wrexham have been a club that have been in the doldrums for a very, very long time. They're another one of those sort of clubs that got very, very strong identity right in the centre of their community. And actually, Rob and Ryan are what look to be very stable, conscientious owners. The kind of stuff that, you know, that we are all kind of dreaming that Clem is going to be for us. So, listen, at the end of the day, it's their money, isn't it? If they feel that way inclined and they just want to come roaring out of non-league and just keep rising and rising, because we've talked about the gap between the National League and League Two and the gap between League Two and League One. I think Wrexham are going to find themselves in League One, you know, quicker than you can say boo to a goose. Feels like they've got that upward trajectory, Joe, doesn't it? But yeah, you're right, mate. Being able to sign Charlton's captain is incredible. When you think Charlton were able to come and just pinch our stars at the end of last season with relative ease, you know, to be seeing Wrexham doing it to Charlton is quite something.
It's mental. I think the only thing I was wondering about was obviously if they're paying. I mean, I don't know how much Paul Mullen's on. Say he's on £9 grand a week. I can imagine that O'Connell is probably on similar. Surely there's sort of FFP rules coming into the Football League. I think you might get a buy of 1 year to sort of stabilise yourself and you won't get penalised. But if they don't go up in the first year in League Two and they've got contracts of players on 9-10 grand a week, they're in trouble, I think.
So
there is no FFP in the National League, but there is in League Two. So, for instance, if Wrexham come up, then they will have to significantly do that. But I think there is a written rule that it's related to your income. But if your owners put money in, it's exempt, so they can probably get away with it with that.
I think they'll probably get away with it because you look at what Stockport have done this window. They've signed 4 or 5 players on top of what they already signed in the summer. So I think I know there is like a financial fair play thing in League Two, but I think it's one of those that if you've got smart owners who know what they're doing to work around the rules, then I don't think it's going to work.
Yeah, I think it's if owners put money in, that's above and beyond the FFP. That's outside of what's linked to your income. So, for instance, if Ryan Reynolds and Rob, whatever his name is, want to put 3 million in, then they can pay them 3 million in wages.
Hey guys, I've had an update from in relation to the stadium. It's a big enough point. I'm sure Matt will be delighted. Down fans will be delighted to hear. Neil Hutchins has come back. Still, you'll recall, was on the show last week. Good evening, Neil. Thank you ever so much, mate, for jumping in. Neil has said we're not quite there yet, Hannahs. Should be an update early next week. So not quite there, but should be getting an update early next week. And I'm sure we would rather have a slightly delayed response and be sure that the deal was right for everyone than have a deal getting rushed through. So we promised you a run through of all the deals from all the clubs in all the places. And no sooner do we need to be doing that than 10 minutes before the closure of the deadline. So I am going to rattle through all of the deals. Guys, feel free to stop me on any of your headline deals that catch your eye that you feel are worth talking about. But these are all chronologically. So we've got Cody Gakpo has moved from PSV Eindhoven to Liverpool, undisclosed. Max Wober has moved from Salzburg to Leeds. Kevin Schade has moved from Freiburg to Brentford. Benoit Badiashile has moved from Monaco to Chelsea. Miroslav Orsic switched to Zagreb for Southampton. David Datro Fofana has joined Chelsea from Molde for between 8 and 10 million. Why can't they just say 9 million, for goodness sake? Andre Santos has swapped Vasco da Gama for Chelsea for 18 million, while João Felix of course, sent off on his debut, switched Atletico Madrid for Chelsea. Alex Moreno has just switched Real Betis for Aston Villa. And Carlos Alcaraz has moved from Racing Club in Argentina to Southampton. Mario Leeming has moved from Nice to Wolves for undisclosed fee. And Wout Weghorst, of course, the former Burnley striker, has joined Manchester United on loan. He's put a few performances in already. Jorginho Rutter switched from Hoffenheim in Germany to Leeds for 36 million. And Mykhailo Mudryk, of course, has at the moment shattered the transfer record for this particular window. A £62 million transfer from Shakhtar Donetsk to Chelsea, potentially a fee rising to 90 million. Danilo has moved from Palmeiras in Brazil to Nottingham Forest, and Pablo Sarabia has moved from PSG to Wolves. Django Ouattara has moved from Lorient to Bournemouth, and Danny Ings has switched Aston Villa for West Ham. Victor Christiansen has switched from Copenhagen to Leicester City, and Noni Madueke has gone from PSV in Holland to Chelsea. Leandro Trossard has, of course, already made his competitive debut for Arsenal, having switched from Brighton for 21 million. And Chris Wood has joined Nottingham Forest on loan from Newcastle. Craig Dawson has switched West Ham for Wolves. John Duran has gone from Chicago Fire to Aston Villa. Maximo Perrone has switched Vélez Sarsfield for Manchester City, whilst Dan Bentley has switched Bristol City to Wolves. Arnaud Danjuma has gone from Villarreal to Tottenham, of course, scoring on his debut on Saturday. And James Bree has moved from Luton to Southampton. Antoine Semenyo has gone from Bristol City to Bournemouth. And Malo Gusto has gone from Lyon to Chelsea. Tete has just recently switched from Shakhtar Donetsk to Leicester City. Anthony Gordon has moved from Everton to Newcastle United for 45 million. Marquinhos today switched Arsenal to Norwich City on loan, and João Gomez has moved from Flamengo in Brazil to Wolves. Yassin Ayari has gone from AIK in Greece to Brighton, and Weston McKennie, the USA international Juventus superstar, has switched from Juve to Leeds on loan. Brian Hill has moved from Tottenham to Sevilla, and Matthias Wiener has moved from Roma to Bournemouth. Diogo Montero has moved from Servette in Switzerland to Leeds, and Nathan Opoku has moved from Masters Sporting Club to Leicester. Chelsea starlet Jude Soonsup-Bell switched to Tottenham, and Harrison Ashby, highly rated at West Ham, he's now at Newcastle. Jorginho has just plugged a couple of gaps at the Emirates Stadium, switching Chelsea for Arsenal. And Sasa Lukic, in the last hour or so, has moved from Torino to Fulham. Diego Llorente has switched Leeds and gone to Roma. And Jed Spence, struggling for game time at Tottenham, has moved to Rennes. And finally, João Cancelo, which I thought was a fascinating transfer, has clearly fallen out with Pep Guardiola, and not content with memories of tearing Swindon apart almost a year ago to the day, has moved from Man City to Bayern Munich on loan. Those are your transfers that are affecting the Premier League. So we're going to break away from that, go back to the panel.
Hannah's, we've got two more that have gone through or about to go through that you've not mentioned there.
Yeah, hit me.
You've got Swindon one. Ryan Whelan's just tweeted, Tomlinson done to Swindon, came out of nowhere.
Yes!
That's what Ryan Whelan's, he's just tweeted it.
Who's just tweeted it?
Ryan Whelan. So, Joe Tomlinson.
Yes.
We'll wait to see what comes from the club, but he's been pretty reliable.
That is the one we were all hoping for, ladies and gentlemen. That is the one.
All right.
Contain yourself, Joe. Contain yourself.
This is why I love this show. You can't replicate that live nature of the. Do you remember we had the show when Ben Garner broke like this? Oh my God! But this is the complete flip reverse.
I was going to bring in a £105 million Enzo Fernandez to Chelsea, but he can piss right off.
Because he said it was dead this morning in an article. So that's obviously just came out of nowhere through the day.
It's been lingering around, isn't it? The start of the transfer window, they were saying about Hutton swap deal maybe, but I'll tell you what, FBT in, and I've just got a text as well of loads of smirky faces and winky faces from someone that would probably know what he's talking about as well. Oh, Swindon
How good
Town
is
Football
that?
Club. Why do you do this to us?
Exclusive indeed. Tomlinson is done. Joe Tomlinson to Swindon Town came out of nowhere. So, see, I don't know whether it came out of nowhere, Ryan. I hate to burst your bubble, but we've been talking about Joe Tomlinson, and there's been lots of wry, winky smiles going on in the corridors at the county ground for quite a while. So it wasn't that long ago, just to illustrate the point, wasn't that long ago as my panel will testify that there were very strong rumours that Romeo Hutton was being linked with a swap deal with Joe Tomlinson. I'm sincerely hoping that's not going to be the flip side or the double edge to this sword. But let's spend a little bit of time talking about Joe Tomlinson, because that has literally fallen exactly as I hoped it would, just ahead of the transfer window closing. If you look at the way that we played on Saturday, Joe, like, it was interesting, wasn't it? Because Marcel Lavinier got man of the match on Saturday, but those that really know their onions were saying that he kind of went down a lot of blind alleys. That, you know, he kind of looked a little bit like, you know, what was the word? He looked like a little bit like a right back at left back. And it was a very busy performance. There were some dazzling turns. And for me, I personally thought he was worth man of the match. But there were his detractors. Joe Tomlinson was a fascinating player when he was with us at Swindon. Obviously, his debut couldn't have gone any better. Then he's picked up a bit of an injury. But he showed us enough in his time at Swindon Town, didn't he, for us all to know that there is a player there. I mean, for a start, he wasn't exactly discreet, was he, in terms of his wishes to want to be at the county. But what a signing, if we can get formal confirmation of that from the football club. What a signing that will be.
Mate, if this comes through like we think it probably will do, based on Ryan Whelan's tweet, based on the message that we've just had, like, I can't think of another last minute. It's currently 4 minutes to 11. I can't think of another last minute signing that's had me this excited. I've just shouted the F word live on air, and I really apologise for that for people that are listening. Like,
we're after all there, don't you worry.
Yeah, there are certain 4-letter words that I try not to say live on air. If I see a picture of him with a Swindon shirt live on air in the next hour, give me another 2 beers and you might get the C word out.
Well, Luke's just tweeted to say, just finished work, Tomlinson, pow. Yes, Luke, I am completely in agreement with you. And let's be honest with you. Let's be honest. The comms have taken a little bit of a battering, haven't they? The club's comms over the last couple of weeks. You know, we, of course, had a 5-day media blackout and all the rest of it. If they've got this one in the bag and they've given us that reason to get excited, I mean, what better way to get excited than to drop Joe Tomlinson on us 2 minutes before the deadline closes? That is a very, very sexy piece of comms, Mr. Rixton, and I raise my hat in your direction. We're just waiting, though, for official news, because at the moment, it could just be some rogue in Peterborough that has blown a little bit of smoke up Ryan Whelan's backside and everyone's jumping on it. But we're going to follow this with great interest over the next couple of minutes. So I know my panel are all over it. Well, I'll tell you what, it would probably make sense at this stage to have gone back to the boys that are supposedly outside the county ground for us. But I think they've turned it in, haven't they, guys? What's happened to Martin and what's happened to Mike?
Martin was on the show a minute ago. I don't know if he's listening still. If he is, mate, jump on. But they sacked it off. And they're going to miss a Joe Tomlinson. Like, they could have got exclusive. Honestly, they need sacking.
I think Martin's just enjoying the free hotel, isn't he?
I think you're probably right. I'll be honest with you. I get a sneaky feeling. I mean, obviously, if the boys have turned up and the county ground lights are all off and the shutters are down, then you do get the impression that the business has been done like pretty early in the day. And I think that's going to bear out if a Louis Tomlinson video is breaking or breaks. Then sorry,
I don't care about Louis Tomlinson.
No, you don't worry about Louis Tomlinson. If a Joe Tomlinson, you can tell I've got a house full of young girls, can't you? If a Joe Tomlinson video,
right, Martin,
you're going to see daylight in the background, aren't you? As the drone is drifting around the county ground. But tweets are continuing to drift in. It's literally just everybody retweeting tweets from all directions about Tomlinson being a done deal. Still, we await official word from the club. And so, interestingly, Nick Judd has just tweeted, Nick, good evening, mate. Nick saying, so what we saying? FBT, Tomlinson, Ward and Walcott with Doughty news to come tomorrow. Andy has just tweeted to say Tomlinson has just signed. So, yeah, just Andy has tweeted saying, yeah, Tomlinson has just signed. Delightful. This is absolutely wonderful if we can get confirmation of it, which we're still waiting for, which is incredibly frustrating. Let's see what else we've got coming in. Russ Arkley has just messaged to say, I was told this Tomlinson news at 8 p.m. by someone who I didn't know walking off training my under 12s, saying he knew someone at the club. I thought
Football Phil strikes again.
I thought he was chatting shit, says Russell Arkley. Well, Russell, listen, it would suggest that there's something in it. So just to read that again, sorry, that sounded a little bit clunky, Russell. I was told this Tomlinson news at 8 p.m. by someone who I didn't know, who was, whilst I was walking off my under 12s, saying he knew someone at the club. I thought he was chatting shit. Well, listen, I've always enjoyed being a Swindon Town fan from the point of view that the club does seem to leak like a sieve. So, from my point of view, they've got a hell of a lot better at it. But Swindon is just a big village, and news does sort of travel fast. And even though I'm sat here on this little corner of the London-Kent border, you'll be amazed that news not only sort of travels around Swindon well, but it just seems to travel around the fan base really well. So, but still, no official news.
I was thinking, going into there, Hannah's, the worry for me is what we are in centre of defence, because we've got nothing. We always had, we thought we were going to get this lad from Tottenham, but we've heard nothing about that. I mean, obviously it can be announced later on, but we need centre halves. We've got none.
It feels like with Tomlinson signing and the fact that Lavinia is an option either side, I think this pretty much solidifies Blake-Tracy as a centre-back for the rest of the season. So you'd think it's probably going to be between, him, Clayton, and who else would it be in the middle? Brennan, yeah. So if that Tottenham comes in, that gives you four
Minton's
options.
in there as well.
Minton, you'd have to think Minton is a genuine option now.
Yeah. He looked pretty decent when he for that 20 minutes he came on Saturday. He looked decent. And
I think if you're especially I know we've gone off a tangent with Minton here, but I think with the manager we've got now, or the head coach we've got now, I think his history of developing young players, I think that can only be good for Minton. So I'm not massive. If we bring that Tottenham lad in, I'm not massively worried. I think we've got enough there in the centre of defence if Blake-Tracy is going to be deployed there for the rest of the season.
Right, we've had a little glut of tweets, so let's get back to some of this stuff and let you know what the lovely listeners are saying. So Jack Willis has tweeted. Jack, good evening, mate. Jack says, as long as Tomlinson isn't a swap for Hutton, then I'm happy. Yeah, I'm with you there, Jack. I would completely agree. And interestingly, I'm not sure I would have agreed with you if we go back about 6 weeks. But I mean, the guy he's an absolute supply line now, and I think Charlie Austin, if he was sat here with us on the show, he'd be saying over my dead body. And you've only got to look at his contributions to Charlie's performance over the last 2 weeks to understand why. Mike Cielsa has tweeted, hello, Mike. Thank you, mate. He says, Doughty mystery explained. And there's a big feature that he's tweeted, which says, Swindon Town expected to receive investment from ex-player. And it says, and I quote, over the past couple of weeks, it's been widely rumoured that Clem Morfuni could be set to welcome an external investor to the club. It would appear that investor could be an ex-Swindon Town player. Welsh under-21 Michael Doughty scored 23 times for the club over 3 spells and is the son of late Nottingham Forest owner Nigel Doughty, etc., which we talked about earlier. The late Nigel Doughty, of course, having an estate worth multiple millions of pounds. And Michael, of course, while still having a soft spot for Nottingham Forest, retains a very soft spot and very, very close affection for Swindon Town Football Club. And Michael's obviously going to be breaking some news tomorrow. So thank you, Mike. I think that does explain an awful lot. John Saunders has tweeted 2 minutes ago, and he says his family next door, 8 a.m., said no chance. 10 p.m., it's on. So Julie has just retweeted. Tomlinson has just signed. Delightful. And who's this going in on my pronunciations? Nick Judd, you absolute rascal. I'm all here for Hannah's pronunciations. Listen, I'm working hard. I'm working hard for my money tonight, Nick. I don't know what to say. What else have we got rolling in? Just lots and lots of people jumping on and retweeting the Tomlinson news. Nick's tweeted to say Tomlinson is a beast of a signing if it happens. Overall, keeping Williams and Bryn, plus getting Austin, represents a good January, in my honest opinion. Got to keep our fingers crossed that Fagan-Walcott is decent if he signs. Centre-back is the only real concern. Jason's tweeted to say Minnow Goats will be a future top centre-back. Again, we touched on that earlier. Kelly Pauls tweeted, hello, Kelly, good evening to you. She said, this is truly, absolutely buzzing. I know one girl will be very happy in the morning too. Kelly, of course, referring to that beautiful human being, Joe Tomlinson, who we are hearing very strong rumours that the guy has re-signed. Andy's just tweeted to say, I would welcome back Ward with open arms. He's a great guy and a decent keeper. Of course, the conversation is based around the fact that Sutton United have released Lewis Ward. His contract has been cancelled by mutual consent, and Lewis having played for us and having played for Sutton is only, we believe, eligible to come back and play for Swindon Town again. And guess what? Swindon are in need of a senior backup goalkeeper. Misty has tweeted, Tomlinson seen to come out of nowhere. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Although, out of nowhere, I think I've probably given up hope today because there's been no chat of it today. But just to reiterate what I was saying earlier, Misty, we've been talking about Tomlinson returning for the best part of the month. Oh, and all the fan photos are coming out now. Malcolm's tweeted an amazing picture of Joe Tomlinson with a nipper. And Louis done exactly the same, which I believe was at Wagamama's. With Joe Tomlinson interrupting his meal. But look at that devilish grin on Joe Tomlinson's face and tell me, especially with top button of his polo shirt done up, that Joe Tomlinson is not a man of standards and love for the Swindon Town uniform. So Hank has tweeted, and it says, Tomlinson signs, and then a graphic that shows a big blue circle and then a little blue square that says it. Yes, indeed. Misty's just reiterating that she is happy, though. Tom's tweeted to say, still laughing we got cash for Lindsey. Best January transfer window for a very, very long time. Of course, this is the thing. We haven't even talked about Scott Lindsey disappearing as part of our January window. But, of course, it plays part of it. And to be honest with you, I probably wouldn't have such a mocking tone had Scott Lindsey not turned around and tried to put the boot in a little bit on the Swindon Town fan base by saying that he'd struggled to build a rapport with the Swindon Town supporters, which I don't think told the full story. So, Jason's tweeted to say that Matty Taylor, the scum down the road, has signed for Port Vale. Wow. Well, scum, no scum. That's all I can say to that one, Matty. Matty, so Jason, sorry. And you go enjoy yourself down there, Matty. Okay. Right, so interesting. So we just received a tweet from Stuart Cole. So Stuart is asking, Jody Morris, what is your footballing philosophy? What style will you implement at Swindon? Now, there's a reason why Stuart is tweeting that question. We are going to be attending the official press conference tomorrow from 3 p.m, where Jody Morris is going to be presented to the local and national media. So both Gabs, who was on with us earlier, as you know, and Joe, who's still on with us now, will be putting your questions and indeed our questions to Jody, which will probably happen over a couple of legs. So we'll be part of the main media scrum where we'll be asking our questions of Jody. And then we're hoping to get some time with Jody thereafter, where we're going to be putting all of your questions to him. And the best question, as judged by Jody, will win a Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge hoodie. So thank you, Stuart. Joe will be adding that question to your list. We've already been inundated with questions over the course of today. So if you've missed the tweet, but you're listening to the show and you're listening tomorrow before 3 p.m. and you'd like to get a question to Jody Morris, who we will be meeting tomorrow at the county ground, either send it to us on tweet or DM your question to either myself or just, tweet directly to @T_STBL. So at the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge. Tweet your questions over and we'll see about getting them to the gaffer, who we are stoked to be meeting tomorrow. Again, everyone is jumping on the Joe Tomlinson groovy train right now. Everyone is, but we still haven't had any form of official confirmation from the club.
No confirmation, but the window slammed shut exactly 10 minutes ago. So
Yeah.
it has to have been done.
Well, so
or it hasn't.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, we're all getting very excited. I don't know. Has somebody just done that dastardly trick of just completely derailing our plans? Well, listen, far be it for me to come out with a begging bowl, but Charlie Austin, I see you listening, fella. If you've got something you can tell us, then by all means, you jump on and tell us. I'm pretty sure if you did, you'd tell us. But here we go. So Josh has just tweeted that deals can be completed in the coming days. So, well, okay. I thought there was a limit to that, to be totally frank. I think the paperwork's got to be, you've got to prove that you've submitted the paperwork before the close of the deadline, haven't you, in order for deals to be confirmed. But Nick's just tweeted to say, a reminder, folks, that the club can still announce signings tonight and tomorrow. Paperwork goes down to the wire. So literally, I believe that's what I've just said. I think as long as paperwork gets submitted and can be proved to be submitted before that 11 o'clock deadline, then you should be okay. I think I think you can still sign players afterwards, a bit like what happened with McCurdy with special dispensation, but it's not a given if a deal gets completed thereafter. But wow. I mean, again, just to reiterate, what a transfer window that will be. I've got to be careful now because he's listening in. But I think we're all, general consensus. Clearly, we're all absolutely buzzing to see Charlie back at the club. And I don't think there's an individual that will be dissenting on that front. And I know that Charlie's really enjoyed fronting up some of the criticism that or not necessarily criticism, but some of the concerns that were voiced as to whether or not he's still got it in League Two. And I think we're all just keeping our fingers crossed he's continuing in this rich vein of form, because if he is, he's going to have 20 goals in the bag before the end of the season, which would be absolutely delightful. We've got, who else do we have in the bag? So we've got FBT has signed permanently today. Jake Cain has signed permanently from Liverpool. And we're hearing this rumour of Joe Tomlinson. Well, Charlie Austin, Jake Cain, Frazer, Blake-Tracy, Joe Tomlinson and Jody Morris in at the expense of Louis Reed, Ben Gladwin, Angus MacDonald and Scott Lindsey out. I'm now going to go around my poll and I'm going to be doing the same for you, dear listener. I'm going to be asking this question. Joe, give me your rating out of 10 for this transfer window.
If we get Tomlinson tonight, 7 out of 10. If we get Fagan-Walcott, 8 out of 10, just based on numbers.
Very nice. Chris, how about you, mate?
I think I'm very similar to Joe there as well. We've been talked about with getting this Fagan-Walcott in, and we've heard nothing about that. And we've heard nothing about Tomlinson. So we could end up having 3 or 4 signings coming after that, because we might have registered them before 11, but not announced them until after. So it's tough really to say now. But from what we know, I'm going to say 6. Because 6. I think we've lost too much experience and not brought it in.
Wow. All right, a 6 from you, a 7 from Joe. How about you, Matt?
I mean, I'm sort of inclined to agree with Chris in that I think we've lost a lot of experience. We've lost a lot of minutes in terms of the amount of minutes that those players were playing. So at the moment, I'd probably give a 6.5. But getting Tomlinson and Fagan-Walcott and boost up the numbers, and I think it is a solid 7. It's been we get those in, and it's been a decent window for what we've lost.
All right, how about you, Ellis?
Are we including the manager in this?
You certainly are.
Right. So I think I think the change from Scott Lindsey to Jody Morris was wow. I think it's a big upgrade. I know we haven't seen him in game yet, but just from the looks of it, I think it's a big upgrade. I think Gladwin going frees up the wage bill. I don't think we're going to miss him massively. MacDonald going, as long as if we have a replacement for him, I'm happy with that. Obviously Charlie Austin coming in, like a massive move. 3 goals in 2 games. Obviously Cain coming in looks a great player that I think we've got a lot more to see from him. And then obviously if Tomlinson comes in, I'm giving this a 8.5.
8.5 out of 10. Very, very interesting. How about you, Jason?
I mean, Charlie, Jake, and Frazer coming in, they're good signings. Frazer's been brilliant this season, so that's a solid signing. But then you do, and of course, Jody coming in, that's a great management appointment. But then I do fear that we needed to get a replacement in for MacDonald, and as has been said on the panel, I think quite rightly, that experience we've lost in midfield, that they're big players we've lost. So for me, it's a 6. If we get Fagan-Walcott in, maybe a 7. Tomlinson, that is good. That is good. But the way I look at Tomlinson is that actually Lavinia's been playing well. So is that an extra player on the pitch, or is that just a bench warmer?
See, I've got a feeling. I mean, I don't know. I think Lavinia is one of these players that could be used in a range of positions and not just on the flank. So I don't know. I mean, Tomlinson coming in is a game changer. I mean, listen, I think we're batting on average there, taking all of your scores, kind of adding them together. It's looking like we're looking at a high 6 or a 7, just scraping a 7, I think. And I'm going to top that up and make sure it's a solid 7, because I think Charlie coming back to the squad, or coming back to the club, I mean, that's a seminal moment for our football club. That is a historic moment for our football club. I know a lot has been said about the way in which Charlie came back to the club. Who's responsible for it? This, that, and the other. Do you know what? Fundamentally, I just don't care. Charlie's back at the club. I tip my hat to Clem for bankrolling it and making it happen. And I genuinely, the last 2 home games have been an absolute pleasure, because he, at 3-1 down at half time, I stood there in the town end and I turned to somebody, I can't remember who it was probably you, Joe, and I turned and I said, you know what, with Charlie in the side, you just know that there's goals in this team. Like, you just know there is. You know it's going to take like one little loose ball in the box. He only needs one chance and bang, it's 3-2. And then bang, before you know it's 3-3. And look what happened. So Charlie's return is an absolute masterstroke, and we're blessed to have a player of that quality in League Two. Irrespective of Charlie's history of our show, any relationships we may have away from this show, Charlie's return to the club is a seminal moment. I think Jake Cain is going to be a proper player for this football club. I always wax lyrical about him. I'm not going to repeat myself. Just hugely influential on Saturday, and has showed me enough that if that's his starting point, it's only going to get better. And FBT is a player that, I mean, wow, as I said earlier, like, if his face is in front of the ball on the goal line and someone's about to put a toe through it and literally try and take the goal net off, he'd quite happily stick his nose in front of it to prevent that from happening. And I mean, he's shown me everything that you want from a defender, everything you want. He is going to grow and grow and grow in stature. I wish we could have got Frazer Blake-Tracy at the club 3-4 years ago. Changing nature of modern football, we wouldn't have been able to keep him that long with him putting in performances. But he shows me everything that it takes, I think, to become a proper club legend. So I'm really excited. Now, I think even without Tomlinson, I'm looking at that and I'm going, okay, let's look at the outs. Well, Louis Reed just struggled to recapture the form from last season. Ben Gladwin, you've heard me talk about him before. Yeah, really, really great start to the season. Love Ben Gladwin around the club. Proper club man, just like Louis. Love having him around the club. The downside about Ben Gladwin is that I genuinely feel that there was a certain lopsidedness about Swindon's midfield when Ben played. And I feel that he caused imbalances in the squad in other areas. And some of this we've talked about. Angus MacDonald, I'm just less bothered about. I just think where he had such a long period of time out injured, I just don't think that we've seen enough of him in a Swindon shirt to really feel like we're going to miss him. And I genuinely believe that FBT and Brennan as a centre-back pairing have got enough about them to grow a partnership. But as sure as eggs is eggs, we need backup. So Harrison Minturn proved on Saturday that he can come in and do a job in League Two. Malachi Fagan-Walcott, I know nothing about, but a lad that's maybe got one senior appearance at Spurs and 2 loan appearances at Dundee United. He could end up being a Romani Edmonds Green for us. We're not going to know until we get him in the building. But yeah, I mean, listen, you suddenly add Joe Tomlinson to that, and I'm looking at that window, including the managerial upgrade, which, as much as I like Scott Lindsey as a person, I feel that he just completely lost. He just lost his way. And I mean, people were even sort of saying they worried for his health. You know, some of the shots that he looked thoroughly despondent at the end of his time at Swindon Town. Jody Morris is going to come in. He's going to insist on standards being high, like professionalism through the roof. He will know how to manage the under-23s. But as I mentioned earlier, he will also have enough about him as a personality that I think he will inspire the older pros as well. What am I
Speaking about Jody Morris there, Hannah's.
Yeah.
I've just had a tweet from Jack Bishop, and he's just mentioned the fact that Marcel Lavinia has played under Jody Morris at Chelsea, and apparently he played a midfield role.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was saying to you earlier. I think it was Marcel himself, actually, that told us a couple of weeks ago after a game that he can play like right across the midfield. I'm sure he did. And I'm sure he said something about playing central. Right, we've had another little glut of tweets that have rolled in. So Josh has tweeted, guys talking about timings. All deals would have to be signed off by 11, but the club can announce at any time in the coming days. Big few announcements tomorrow, I reckon. James has tweeted, what time is it in Brisbane? Oh, you rascal, James. You absolute rascal. Riffing off of our ITK performance with Charlie Austin in days gone by. Rita Paul has tweeted, I hope it's true about Joe Tomlinson. Casey will be made up to see Joe back at the county ground again. Hello, little Casey. We send you all our best. Trevor Hayter has tweeted, if he's coming back, yes, please, with lots of S's and lots of E's. So I'd be a very happy Trevor Hayter. We've got Luke tweeting saying, Austin Tomlinson FBT on a permanent, possible Fagan-Walcott, keeping Sol and Morris as manager, got to be better than a 6 out of 10. I completely agree, Luke. Before I was so rudely interrupted, I was going to give it an 8, a solid 8 for me. It's been a really positive January. Just need to make sure we get that little bit of experience through the door. Josh has tweeted again to say Lavinia has played as a box-to-box midfielder in youth under Morris, like you just said, Joe. Apologies. And Jason's tweeted to say Tomlinson used to play as a right centre midfielder. He's right-footed, believe it or not. Well, we do believe it, Jason. We do believe it because when we signed him last time, it was made very clear that he could play on both sides. So if he can play down the middle, that's also going to be positive, right? Rita's tweeted to say again, I thought MacDonald went on a free transfer. Yeah, pretty sure he did, Rita. I haven't seen anything to suggest otherwise. And South Coast Reds has tweeted, Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge, please let's not forget about our best centre-back in Tom Clayton. Yeah, definitely not forgetting about him. It's just that we didn't sign him in this window, South Coast Reds, which is the only reason why we've maybe not talked about him enough. But obviously, him as one of 3 centre-backs with FBT, Clayton, Brennan, yeah, like for sure as eggs is eggs. it's not the end of the world. But I do think we need another body in there, don't you? Ideally, you want 4 centre backs on the books, don't you? Come on, at least. And I know we can say that we got Minnow as well, but I don't know. It still just feels a bit youthful for me. Neil's tweeted, Clayton coming back to fitness, plus these signings, if they all go through, and we are just about covered. Lavinier can cover multiple roles, including central midfield. Neil, I think we're all working out who's been playing a bit of Football Manager, mate. That's all I'm going to say to that. And yes, Neil, I'm guilty as charged. So Joe is saying, hey, I said a 7. Yes, Joe, yeah, indeed you did. Pierce is saying, Doughty will be Swindon's chief sustainability officer, according to BBC 5 Live. He's currently speaking on it right now. So please don't leave us for 5 Live, people. But make sure if you go back and listen to their on-demand service, just bookmark your time. The time is 23:25, and he is currently speaking about it right now. So coming back to Swindon Town as chief sustainability officer. Welcome back, Michael. It's going to be brilliant to see you back at the football club on hopefully a bit more of a full-time basis. We still don't have any official line on Tomlinson, but Kevin is tweeting that Tomlinson is an April Fool's, but it's 7 if Tomlinson comes in. Oh, I'll tell you what, Ryan Whelan, you're a sick man if you put that out there as an April Fool's. I don't know, guys, what are you thinking? I'll come back to my lovely panel. Do you think our business is done? Do you think we've missed out on Fagan-Walcott? And do you think we've missed out on any hope of Joe? Because it was an easy lever to pull, wasn't it, to get a few cheap laughs. What do you think?
No, it's going to happen. It's just, to be honest, our announcements are... I think it might have been Pete tweeted earlier on saying, even if we sign someone at 11 o'clock today, it's not going to get announced till Friday afternoon. So, yeah, I think it's done. I'm fully in the camp that it's done. I'm quite excited, and everyone else should be as well.
I think I'm pretty much in the Joe camp, which unusually, because no one normally agrees with Joe. And but the thing is though, it's not what's announced, it's what's done. And if they've done it before midnight, there's no. Well, we generally announce stuff about a week after anyway, don't we?
Well, look, I'm just trying to get across his socials now, and just those socials. There is nothing on his social platform at all to suggest that is happening. So, unless I'm missing anything, I don't think we've got anything exciting to talk about with Joe Tomlinson just yet. Some updates, though, that are rolling in late deals that have been confirmed in the Premier League. So Keylor Navas is going to be playing in the Premier League, guys. So speaking as an ex-goalkeeper, I'm very excited to be seeing Keylor Navas turn out for Nottingham Forest, who, of course, lost Dean Henderson to injury. So they've now got 3-time Champions League winning goalkeeper on loan from PSG. He's got some of the most extravagant training and warm-up routines. Takes you back to the days of John Burridge, for those old enough to remember. So look out for Keylor Navas. John Joe Shelby has completed his move from Newcastle to Nottingham Forest. Joe, your favourite fee, what do you reckon it might be?
Undisclosed.
Very much so. Pedro Porro has completed from Sporting Lisbon to Spurs. He's initially joining on loan with an obligation to buy for 40 million. And Albert has this for a bit of a... So when this guy signed for Arsenal, there were some real high hopes when he joined from Anderlecht, I think it was. Albert Sambi Lokonga has moved from Arsenal to Palace on loan. So he's going to be under the tutelage of former Arsenal legend Patrick Vieira, who Arsenal will be hoping bring that kid on, because he left Belgium. He was one of the real high, sort of like exciting young prospects. But suffice to say, he's not necessarily warmed any cockles at the Emirates Stadium. I think I might have mentioned before, Felipe has moved from Atletico Madrid to Nottingham Forest, undisclosed, and Hamed Traore has moved from Sassuolo to Bournemouth on loan with an obligation to buy. In fact, one other piece of business that I don't think I mentioned before, Naouri Hamada has moved from Stuttgart to Crystal Palace for £9.7 million.
Hannah, you mentioned Keylor Navas to Nottingham Forest.
Yep, I have. Yeah,
Oh, you have. Sorry, I missed that. That's the most random transfer of the summer of the window. Sorry.
Yeah, I really wax lyrical about it. I mean, he'll be on a pretty penny wages wise, but yeah, 3-time Champions League winning goalkeeper, who will be deputising for the injured Dean Henderson, of course, himself on loan from Manchester United. That's a big signing for Forest. I mean, Forest have obviously by a million miles. Well, I'll say that by a million miles. Forest have probably been the busiest of the clubs, probably just about pipping Chelsea, who have been the biggest spenders of all the clubs. But I mean, yeah, I think everyone was kind of pretty much writing Forest off based on their sort of transfer activity. But what a job that Cooper has done at Forest, sort of pulling them up the mid-table. Sort of looks like safety if they can continue their current form. But yeah,
it's one of those, isn't it? I think Forest they're going to struggle in attack, but with the signings of Felipe and Navas in goal and in centre back, I think they're going to probably keep a few more clean sheets than they were before. But it's one of those ones as well. Like Cain Navas has probably been one of the best goalkeepers of the last 10 years in European football. But they've got Dean Henderson, who, if it was according to him, he's been the best goalkeeper in European football for the last 50 years. So as soon as he's fit, he's back in the team, isn't he? And Navas is on the bench.
Yeah.
According to Dean Henderson, that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. So, all right, had a little, while we're continuing to try and get to the bottom of the Louis Tomlinson, sorry, I said it again, Joe Tomlinson story. MST's sent me over a link from the Peterborough Telegraph. It says, according to reports, Posh have made inquiry about a 21-year-old left-back, Ethan Bristow from Tranmere. Bristow joined Rovers from Reading in the summer on a 2-year contract and has been an ever-present in the league. He did make 6 championship starts for the Royals last season as they battled against Posh to remain in the division. And in total, he made 11 appearances for the side he began his career with. Posh are known to be in the market for a pair of fullbacks, and the potential arrival Bristow will hasten the exit of Joe Tomlinson, who fell well down the pecking order under previous boss Grant McCann and has struggled with injury this season. Well, no better place to come and struggle with injury than the club that is rumoured to have some of the best medical facilities and best medical team outside of the top 3 divisions. So fingers crossed, we're going to have some positive news in relation to Joe Tomlinson, but still no official line from the club. Right, it's an interesting one. I mean, there's a whole host of deals that have broken down the Football League, like literally too many to mention. There have been hundreds of players on the move down the Football Leagues, but we've pretty much kind of plucked out all of the priority moves. And I don't think, to be totally frank, that anyone's really interested in Will Goodwin switching Stoke for Cheltenham, for example, of which there are plenty of transfers like that.
Hammers, just an update on the Hakim Ziyech move from Chelsea to PSG.
Yeah.
So there are reports coming out just now that Hakim Ziyech has not signed for PSG. Chelsea have sent the wrong documents 3 times to derail the deal.
Oh, wow.
So they've missed the deadline because Chelsea have sent the wrong documents 3 times. Now, that smacks of De Gea to Real Madrid in 2013, but maybe with a little bit more on top of it, because to send in the document 3 times anyway, but to make sure that you've just sent the incorrect one, come on now.
Yeah, it's a little bit naughty, isn't it? We've got a few more tweets that are rolling in from our side of the fence, though, the red and white side. Dino has mailed us, Dino Barkham. Hello, Dino. Dino says, yeah, he's laughing at the Pox, who have loaned out top scorer Matty Taylor to Port Vale, which he's really very much enjoying. That's got all the hallmarks of a falling out, that has. You don't
go for each other, aren't they?
Do you? That's a bizarre one. We're just hearing that Dearlang Joasimi, unfortunately, won't be coming back to Swindon Town. He's going to be signing for AFC Wimbledon, which is a little bit sad. Dean McMacken is ebbing away at my faith, I've got to say, by saying the club would have said at 11 if it was done. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, Dean. And I'll tell you what, if the deal ends up going through, I'd love to know what the story was behind it. Chris has tweeted to say loan window shut at 11 p.m, same time as the permanent window, apart from emergency loan, i.e. for a goalkeeper. You can sign a player if he was out of contract at the time the window shut. I think that's the thing in relation to Lewis Ward, isn't it, at the end of the day? I think like we probably got an ability to engage in conversations over the next couple of days with Lewis if it seems like that is the deal that we all want to get done. What else have we got coming in here? Michael Flatman has tweeted, cheers for confirming, wasn't quite sure how it works during the transfer window. So nice one, Chris. He's thanking you, Howler50. He thinks we've missed a trick. If we got the Morris deal done sooner, we could have utilised his connections. Yeah, I see what you mean, Michael. I see what you mean. But, you know, listen, we've got, I mean, the conversations I was hearing in the build up to today was that, if anything, they were looking to get squad numbers down because we had, you know, I appreciate this isn't my view, by the way, but the club were counting some of our younger players and they were assuming that we had a squad that was up in the 30s and that they wanted to slim it back down into the 20s. So, listen, I don't want to get into that argument because it's not mine. I completely agree with anyone that would want to take that argument apart. But as far as I was aware, the club were looking to slim things down. So, yeah, Keegan, thank you for breaking that news, mate, about Jai Simi joining AFC Wimbledon on loan. He's not quite been the same player, has he, since he left town? Didn't really happen for him at Charlton. The Charlton fans were kind of like, you know, of an attitude. Obviously, I live just down the road. They're of the attitude that he just flatters to deceive. He's a little bit of a show pony, which is a little bit harsh. But I think we are all very aware that he will do a bloody good job for Wimbledon in the bottom tier. So a few more bits and bobs that are rolling in. We have just received, thank you, James, who has just tweeted an update from Johnny Leafield, that is. Maybe an announcement is imminent on the Swindon Advertiser page at the moment. Their update, their news ticker update. It says, bunch of bullet points, very busy day expected at Swindon. Jody Morris finally confirmed. Angus MacDonald released by Swindon after just 6 months into a 2-year deal. Frazer Blake-Tracy signs permanently. Johnny Williams looks to be staying after Robins reject two Hibernian deals, two Hibernian bids. And at 11:30, it says, ladies and gentlemen, and every other living being that supports Swindon Town, do not go to bed. That was 11:30. Now, it's been announced on the club website. We are now hearing we have signed Joe Tomlinson on loan. So let me see whether that is indeed the case. And if it is, I will tell you exactly what it says. Drum roll, ladies and gentlemen. Drum roll. Here we go. Joe Tomlinson, I am delighted to say, is smiling back at me, ladies and gentlemen, holding a First City Swindon Town shirt, darkness in the background. Martin and Mike, I am going to kick your asses into next week because you have missed Tomlinson slip past you and into the county ground. He's smiling back at us from the darkness, and it says, and I quote, Swindon Town have completed the loan signing of Joe Tomlinson from Peterborough, subject to EFL approval. I'm grinning so hard right now. The 22-year-old who spent 6 months at SM1 after signing on deadline day back in January last year will play his football at the county ground until the end of the current campaign with a view to a permanent move in the summer. Tomlinson spent his early career at Southampton, Yeovil and Brighton before a fruitful loan spell at Bognor Regis. Following his release from the Seagulls at the end of the 18-19 season, he penned a deal with Hungerford, where he was captain at just 19. A move to Eastleigh in 2020 followed, where he made 41 league appearances, scoring 12 goals, earning him a move to Peterborough. It was then on to Swindon for his first taste of football at SM1 back in January last year, where he made 10 appearances, with an EFL Young Player of the Month award following in February for some top performances, which saw him contribute 3 assists and a goal that month. So the club have commented we're incredibly excited to get Joe back here at Swindon. He's a player the fans know really well and will be a key figure in our push towards promotion. Having played here already, he'll be familiar with his surroundings, which is a huge plus. And here's a great quote directly from Joe. It's brilliant to be back. I had a troubled time last season due to injury, which was really frustrating, but I'm ready to go again. I feel good and I can't wait to get going. I had a great time here at the club previously when I was on loan, and being a Swindon boy, growing up supporting them, I had no hesitation to come back once I knew there was interest. This is a really young side with a lot of talent, and I'm looking forward to being part of that, driving this club forward to great things. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome home, JT. How chuffed are we, panel? Wax lyrical, the stage is yours.
He's home. Good to have him. Yeah, I'm really happy to have him back. Because he's just a good, dynamic player. They can play on either side of the defence. And he's just, and I'm not to forget the set pieces either. I think he's just a really useful player to have. And I think he'll probably come straight in at left back.
Oh, he's absolutely beaming. So it's all breaking across the socials now. And he is absolutely beaming. You can't fake those facial expressions. You can tell the kid is over the moon to be back. Oh,
that photo, he looks like he's got tears in his eyes, but it might just be cold.
Mate, he's so happy. Just look at his face. He is so happy. I mean, he's a very confident, ebullient, sort of charismatic character anyway, isn't he? But, yeah, I mean, listen, he is smiling from his eyes, the kid. He is over the moon to be back, and we're over the moon to have him back.
Mate, well, those words, just, sorry, I know you move on there, but...
No, not at all. I'm not moving on, mate. I'm
the words, being a Swindon boy growing up supporting them, I had no hesitation to come back once I knew there was interest. How often do you hear a signing say or admit that he grew up supporting the club? And it was so evident in his last tenure, his short tenure here last season, that he cared deeply about the football club. When he was injured, he was watching the games in the crowd in the town end. I think was he in the away end at Walsall?
Yep.
Like, that's, you want players on that pitch that you know are vying and fighting for the same passion that you have, watching as a supporter. It's a dream to have. That's why we love having players come through our academy and play for the first team at great length. Those are the boys you want on the pitch wearing your shirt. They care just about as much as you do. And, yeah, I don't really have any words, mate, to be honest. It's just, didn't expect it. Didn't know it was happening. Now I do. I'm going to need a week off work.
Ellis, I've let you sit there quietly, mate. I know you'll have probably had to change your pants because you're a big fan of Mr. Tomlinson. How's it feel?
Yeah, buzzing. I just think what he brings to this squad as a whole is, it's a great move. It gives us depth in that left back position. Blake-Tracy can be played centre back if needed. But yeah, top player, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in red and white.
Well, I'll tell you, we're having a lovely, lovely little glut of tweets coming in. It's really lovely to see everyone reveling in this. Jack's just tweeted, "Thank God I didn't go to sleep." Thank God indeed, Jack. Because I think if Dean McMacken had ebbed any more of my enthusiasm away, I would probably have jacked in the show and wound things up. But I tell you what, I've got a sneaky feeling the night's not finished, because Johnny didn't necessarily just drop in the JT hint, did he? I've got a feeling as what we got here. Where are we? So we have got another tweet that says, so where are we? So, yep, FBT, Tomlinson, Ward and Walcott. I've got a sneaky feeling that it's going to be worth hanging around for the last 15 minutes at least of our show tonight, because I think there's every chance we might see Ward and Fagan-Walcott at least added to the mix. Ash has tweeted, yeah, very good point, Ash. He'll now be playing with his hero, Charlie Austin, of course, with... direct reference to Joe Tomlinson, which is lovely to see. And Luke's tweeted to say that JT was in front of us in the town end, proper town fan. So happy for me and happy for us. Superb. Yeah, absolutely, Luke. Absolutely. Tomlinson's number, we don't know yet. It was 21, wasn't it, last season? So we don't know whether it's going to be anything else. I think you're right, though. So I think 7's available. But I'm sure he'll probably gun for his number from last season if it's still available. I don't think he's going to be that fussy, to be honest. I think I've just about recovered from seeing Charlie Austin in an 11 shirt as opposed to a 32. So I don't know.
Well, MacDonald was 21, wasn't he? So he should be able to get it back.
Yeah, you would think so, wouldn't you? I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I'll take Joe Tomlinson in a hoop skirt. I wouldn't give a monkeys. I'm absolutely buzzing. That we've got him back. Jason Cockerton. So what do you feel about that then, mate? Joe Tomlinson, lovely late signing. What does that mean to you?
I mean, I think it's saved the transfer window for me a little bit. I kind of I was at a 6 and then wavering down to a 5, but now I'm kind of back up at a 6. So, like, he's a great player, and I think as you said before, I think it opens up where we can play players like Villiers can now play maybe through the middle, maybe as a winger. So yeah, it's exciting. It's good to see a little bit more balance because I was a little bit worried that we were going to be playing right footers in left back slots all season, and maybe we still will, but maybe it's a player who can come inside, put a cross in. I don't know. It's exciting. It is exciting, but I do still feel like we're a centre back missing.
I know what you mean, and I'm with you, mate. I mean, listen, with absolutely no disrespect to the younger lads in the in the squad, I want to see them all get their opportunity. I really do, but yeah, we've lost some, we've lost some real experience in Reedy, Gladwin, MacDonald. I just kind of feel like you kind of need that in there. And as MST's just tweeted as well, let's not forget that Cain's going to be banned for a game. He's got a couple of bans. It was his second red, wasn't it? So he's going to be missing for a couple of games. Adam's asked to join us. Adam, hello, mate. Good evening to you. Nearly good morning. If you're able to unmute your speaker, mate, you're more than welcome to come on and share your point.
Oh, bloody hell, sorry. Yeah, how are we doing?
Yeah, very good. You chuffed?
I'll tell you what, I'm quite content so far with what I've seen.
Really?
Today. Yeah, I'm happy. Look, I was a bit, how do we say? I was a bit critical of Sandro's recruiting process with the fact that the squad, the first team seemed to be getting a lot younger. And, like we say, we were losing some of that experience that we had, especially in the midfield. The defence now, I think, is solid with that signing. I'd like to see this Walcott signing over the line by the end of the window. And what probably top this window off for me altogether is at least maybe one midfielder, maybe with a bit of experience in the league as opposed to another young lad. I think what would really top off for me is a proper out and out, central defensive mid, a big strong bloke, maybe with a bit of a League Two experience under his belt. You thought he's
names in mind, Adam? Is there anyone in particular that catches your eye that you're thinking?
Oh, not off the top of my head, because I'm basically ready for bed. I'm absolutely shattered. It's been a long old day. But I just keep remembering seeing players like Linganzi and Diagora, however you say his name, blokes like that who could really hold the ball up in the middle and spray it out wide to the attacking players that we've got on the wing. I'd like to see something like that get over the line, but at the end of the day, I'll take anything. If we can bring in a midfielder or someone who can play in the midfield as well as slot into the defence, I'd be happy with that, and the window would be spot on for me.
Well, we've got literally like 12 minutes of our show, and indeed pretty much the window left. Out of 10, mate, where are you scoring this window for you?
Even just with the signings of Charlie and Cain, even before these last few days, I'd have put it up there as probably a 7, just from those two alone. Obviously, where we've lost a couple players and a bit of experience, with that Tomlinson signing, with him being such a solid player, and if we can get one more over the line, I think I'd probably keep it at 7, maybe an 8. At the minute, I'm hovering around a 6. I think there's still a little bit more that could be done.
Well, all right then, mate. We'll take you for that. Cheers for joining us, Adam. A show debut for you. Don't make it your last one, will you?
No, yeah, I'll keep popping in. Thank you very much.
No, you're very welcome, mate. You're very welcome. So it seems like everyone's starting to enjoy their transfer deadline day now. As I said right at the start of the show, I like the hysteria that Sky Sports have sort of whipped up around transfer deadline day. And Keegan is also in the same boat, who's tweeted, "I'm starting to love transfer deadline day." He's tweeted us direct, Keegan. We're going to take full responsibility for your love of transfer deadline day. We were all talking about it in the build up to this today's show. In the week leading up to it, we're all really, really looking forward to putting these on. They're brilliant fun to do because we never know what's going to happen. Obviously, we're Town fans, just like everyone else that's listening in. And the chances that you get a Joe Tomlinson coming in live as what's happened tonight makes it all absolutely worth doing. Taze has also tweeted, he said, "I never thought I'd enjoy transfer deadline day too much. Jim, wipe my arse." I won't read the rest of it, Taze, but that's very, very kind of you. Thank you very much. Very kind words indeed. Kelly Paul, hello Kelly, thanks for clarifying. JT's shirt number last season was 23. Who's got the 23 this year? Max, you'll know. That's your bag. I'm sure you'll know. Who's 23?
Sadiq Khan wears 23 this season.
Oh, so he's not going to be wearing his shirt from last year. He's going to be on 21, and he's going to be on 21.
21's a fullback number, isn't it? So
yeah, indeed. So everyone's jumping on the Welcome Home Joe bandwagon, which we love to see. What a wonderful, wonderful way to be winding the show down. Got another tweet here. It says, whatever is said about the players now, regardless of age, they have passion and will lift the fans. Charlie, Joe, Johnny, Darcy, McD and Gladders were bland in comparison. A little bit harsh. Haven't minced your words, but yeah, I kind of, I'm willing to take your opinion on board. Just gonna see if we can hop back into any of the remaining Swindon Town news and sources to see whether there's anything else potentially happening here. So on the transfers front, there is a little bit of breaking Premier League news in that it's looking like Chelsea have agreed that deal with for Fernandes, but Ziyech to PSG remains in serious doubt. Leicester have completed a £15 million transfer for Stokes Suter, and I think we are still not seeing any more updates in relation to Swindon Town, of course. Malachi Fagan-Walcott is the player on the tip of everyone's tongue, along with Lewis Ward. But as we were mentioning earlier, Lewis Ward may be less of a kind of pressing priority because he is a free agent, so therefore will be able to sign outside of the window restrictions. Interesting signing if you're a Tottenham Hotspur fan. Spurs have written off any investment they've got in Matt Doherty and released him, and he's promptly gone and signed for Atletico Madrid. So switching Tottenham for the Wanda Metropolitano, that is quite a move for the 31-year-old. After his contract agreed due to cancelled with mutual consent. So for Atletico, how unusual is that?
Do you know the reason why behind it? The reasoning behind that?
Go on.
Essentially, what it was, Tottenham actually reached their quota on the amount of loans that they could dish out for the season. So, in order to get him finalised this might not be true, but from what I've read, they've had to terminate his contract to get the move finalised for him to move over to Atletico.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Adam. That's very kind. You're welcome back. I wasn't expecting you back so soon. But
yeah, I've stayed listening.
Well, so well. So you should, because Taser's just tweeted to say that Mad Mash Media are hinting that we still aren't done. So don't go to bed, Swindon fans.
I'm going to have to stay up.
You don't go to bed. I know. Listen, I'm starting to get a very, very dry throat, but it is worth just holding on tight because Mad Mash Media are saying that we are still not done. What do you reckon, my wonderful panel? Someone take the strain off of my vocal cords. Have you got?
I've just seen that Peter O'Rourke,
isn't it?
Peter O'Rourke 2 hours ago did tweet about Fagan-Walcott coming to Swindon, and he's normally spot on. So I didn't see that. That was 2 hours ago. But so if there is something, it might happen.
Well, Mad Mash Media has said 3 minutes ago the drone is getting all moody and arty on us now. Is it done though? Hand on chin, and we've got.
Will that be a permanent signing? Because I've just seen, obviously, as I was speaking before, Swindon came out and confirmed that the Tomlinson signing was a loan. Now that would have been something I would have liked to have seen as a permanent deal. The loan is a loan, and it's good enough, and that'll see us through to the end of the season. Hopefully, get us promoted. You know, I've said even under Lindsey that with the players that we had even before the window, I think with the change of tactics that we're going to get under Jody Morris, anything under anyone other than Lindsey, I think in terms of tactics, first half of the season, we would probably be sat quite comfortably in the top three. Now, with this window and the prospect of Jody Morris, I can't see why we can't break into that top three and sit there.
What I'd add to that as well, Adam, the Tomlinson deal was a loan with a view to a buy. So you've got a deal there to make in summer to buy Tomo.
Loan with a buy, awesome. I didn't read that far. Okay, that's good then.
The key thing,
you know, if we clinch promotion, I can't see why he wouldn't want to put pen to paper.
Yeah, I think Fagan-Walcott as well, from what has been reported, will be a long-term contract, so that'd be a permanent too.
Perfect.
I think with JD, the key is going to be probably on our end. There's no doubt in his quality. It's going to be whether or not we can keep him fit. And obviously, like he's mentioned it himself, he's been troubled with injury this year, had a few injuries last year, but at the moment he's fit, he's raring to go. And
if there's any club in the EFL that can keep a player fit as well, it's Swindon Town with our sports science team.
Yeah, exactly that. We've got a few more tweets that are rolling in. Michael's tweeted to say that Ryan Williams has tweeted to say he doesn't know if we got the Fagan-Walcott deal over the line. But yeah, other people are saying here, Mad Mash Media are hinting that we still aren't done. John has tweeted, just to reiterate what Gloucester Red and Proud tweeted earlier, in the small print, the Tomlinson loan is a permanent transfer in the summer. We've just been talking about that. John Saunders has tweeted, must be the Spurs lad we're waiting for. I was told at lunchtime that he had signed. Doug has just tweeted, just reiterating that it's a loan with a permanent transfer in the summer option for JT. Again, MST has just messaged me directly along a similar line, and we continue to wait for updates. It's about 2.5 minutes and counting until midnight, and we are still waiting for more updates, which is, fascinating. I mean, look, the interesting thing about the lads that are outstanding, obviously, Fagan-Walcott is a young kid. I mean, just looking at our centre-back options, basically what they're clearly looking at is they're going, well, Brennan and FBT are going to be your senior partners. And then you've got Clayton and Minturn, potentially Malachi. You've got potentially FBT moving back out to left back, offering you cover out on the left flank. There's been no exit for Divine, loan or otherwise. So clearly Divine's nearly back to full fitness, and he's going to be like a new signing at left back. Departures wise, probably spend a bit of time talking about that. So there's been no talk of Willow leaving, which we can all heave a sigh of relief. So that in itself is big news. And at least we hope. And Ellis is still in the building as well, with all of the versatility and his ability to play in a number of positions. So, but I mean, we're all massively pleased that we've not lost Willow, aren't we? Let's be honest. I mean, if we got news now, like breaking in the next couple of minutes, it'd be a devastating blow, wouldn't it?
Oh, 100%. Look, Williams is that kind of player where, you know, if we're going to make a statement of, right, we're going to push for the higher end of this league and we're going to get ourselves into League One, a player with the experience and the quality of Williams is not someone you want to let slip through the door. And it was something I was really worried about with the talks of, like, when that list came out a few days ago of who was rumoured to be going out the door, especially after we lost, the rumour of Angus, and we already lost Gladwin. You know, we need to keep that experience needs to stay there. The attackers we've got now is absolutely spot on, and I think that portion of the pitch is nailed on, done, and that will be more than enough. But you know, fingers crossed. You know, we don't have anything terrible happen to Austin in terms of injuries, because we know how prone he has been in the last recent seasons. But it's just I'm just still overwhelmed with the fact that us as a club are now at a point where we can attract these young Premier League players to the point where they're even content with signing permanent deals. You know, I think that's absolutely fantastic. You know, with like Lavinia, that was an amazing signing, and Cain as well. Getting him from Liverpool, that is huge. And the only thing is now we need to make sure we do enough in the league to be able to keep these players on and not be worried about clubs swooping in and taking them. We need to have that. We need to have that incentive for these players to stay.
Well, you know what? I think the really interesting thing you're saying there, Adam. I think that's why the appointment of Jody Morris is so important as well, because I think even if things don't go to plan this season, like let's just say, look, we have a repeater last year and we kind of, you know, we miss out like by a hair's breadth. To get to, you know, to look at next season and go, right, okay, do I really believe this club can kind of, you know, match my ambitions? Hang on, I've got Jody Morris in the dugout. And you start looking around that squad and you're going, no, hang on a minute, I think I can see what's going on here. You know, there's a lot of rough diamonds that, you know, are clearly this club are polishing. The key for me, Adam, is that there was a lot of chat today when, you know, clearly, the thing is, there's no smoke without fire. And I'm sure that, you know, that either there are clubs around at Willow, and clearly that was the case because Hibs have put in a couple of bids. And I hope it isn't the case that, you know, we were out walking him around trying to flog him. But there's not usually like smoke without fire. Now, all I would hope is that some of these guys that we're bringing into our club, you know, like your JTs, your Marcel Laviniers, your Claytons and so on, I hope we just hold on to them just long enough that, you know, we can get ourselves like upwardly mobile. We're not about hope. We're not about just turning quick profit.
No, 100%. You know, I think with Willow, I don't think there was anything in regards to him going. Personally, I think, you know, the club straight away put their foot down and said, you know, thankfully we're now in a position. You know, Swindon a couple of seasons ago, especially under Lee Power, as soon as bids were coming in, these players were going. You know, and it's a refreshing change that this isn't the case anymore. You know, like you say with Jody Morris, us as a fan base, we need to get behind him and make sure that man doesn't go anywhere before summer. Now, if we've got that anchor at the start of the summer transfer window, and we've got a well, you know, built squad, the club looks like it's going in the right direction. There's no reason why people won't want to stay and, you know, work under Jody Morris. You know, obviously we're going to have to remember that this is going to be his first senior management role, and it may not get off to a flying start. But I think it's going to get there. And, you know, as long as, you know, Clem and the rest of the board are backing him and he's getting in the players he wants and, you know, we keep things on the upward trajectory, there's no reason why these players that we're bringing in won't stay. And there's no reason why, if offers do start coming in the summer, we can reject them, and there will probably be no arguments from those players. And fingers crossed, they'd be happy to stay at the club.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree. Listen, we've had a few more tweets rolling in. Sarah's tweeted. She says she feels for us all staying up. One benefit of her living in New Zealand is it's 1 p.m. Wednesday here, and she's listening while she's working. Well, Sarah, you're working, but I'm sat here with a beer in my hand. Here's to you. Hey, go and have a coffee on us, Sarah. Yeah, breathing some of that lovely New Zealand air. Right, where are we?
Ryan Whelan has just joined. I don't know if he's just joined, but come on, can you give us anything? Is there any more coming tonight?
Or am I just gonna have to keep refreshing the club website until something appears again?
the man who's here to tell us is here. If there's anyone that can tell us, the man is sat there, and fingers crossed he's got something to say.
He's probably having a good listen to us and seeing whether or not we're breaking anything ourselves. Okay.
The League 2 Fabrizio.
Okay. Well, look, I mean, I cannot see that there is anything else breaking tonight, dear listeners. So, I mean, I'm going to just put it to my panel before we call it a night and just say, what do you think, guys? Is it time that we wrap up tonight's coverage, given that we've been going at this now just over 3 hours, at the risk of missing out on a Malachi, Fagan-Walcott and Lewis Ward stood in a pitch black county ground with the pitch lamps behind him? What do we think? Do we feel confident enough that we've rinsed tonight for all it's got?
I will get up at 6 in the morning.
Ellis is
Ellis
signed. I'd say I reckon we've signed at least one more. I don't know whether or not it'll be announced tonight. I think they might save it for a morning announcement. But I in my heart of hearts, I reckon we've got at least one more.
Yeah,
I don't think we're done tonight. Because across the Football League, even this might be petty and just clutching at straws, but every club that's finished their business today has tweeted that they're finished, and so far we haven't had anything from the club to say that they're done.
Yeah, it's true enough. I've got a feeling we are gonna. No, sorry, John Saunders, we're not on tomorrow. We are not on tomorrow. We pulled the show forward a night earlier so we could get the transfer deadline day show done and dusted, and also it's my birthday and I don't want to end up being divorced on my birthday. But I hope you'll forgive us, John, given we've put another mammoth effort into tonight. Leon's just tweeted to say that he thinks we've got another 2 more. Leon, I'm with you on that. I think we're going to get Fagan-Walcott, and I think we're going to see Lewis Ward back at the county ground. I can just feel it in my water. So that's what I think is going on. I think we'll have Lewis Ward confirmed in the next couple of days. And I think, as Joe's alluding to there, I think we're either going to wake up to it or there is going to be some kind of confirmation that Fagan-Walcott paperwork was submitted in time, all being well. I think a nice way to finish then, guys, if we are agreeing that we're going to wrap up tonight, is Simon Maslin. What a brilliant way to finish, Simon. Just saying this. Great to see Tomlinson back. Yeah, I mean, I literally, I couldn't agree more with you, Simon. It's always, the thing is, I get accused of being a sentimentalist. But I really don't see it like that. I think there are certain players that have still got loads left in the tank and have got an affinity with the crowd. And the one thing that Charlie Austin has proven over the last couple of weeks is that, there is a certain ability that those players have got when we know there's an affinity with the Swindon Town supporter base and they've still got plenty of playing miles left in the tank. There is a certain magic that exists in that space that doesn't exist on any spreadsheet anywhere in the world. The ability to just orchestrate a crowd, as you saw from Charlie at the weekend after he scored his penalty. And then when he got the 3rd goal and you saw him kind of like revving up the crowd, there is a certain thing that exists there, certain magic that exists there. And that's what I think Joe Tomlinson's got. Not necessarily at quite the level that Charlie's got it, but the idea of Joe Tomlinson on the pitch with Charlie Austin God, I tell you what, you lucky buggers that managed to get your tickets for Newport on Saturday, you're in for a treat. That much is for sure. Well, listen, it's been my absolute pleasure to host this motley crew of Joe, Max, Ellis, and the boys live at the ground who called it a night. And I'm going to get an absolute shoeing for doing so, albeit in fairness to them, they have an early start and they were very cold. But what an absolute treat to be able to break the Joe Tomlinson news with you live on the air tonight. We are the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge. We are an independent Swindon Town fan Twitter space. Our views don't represent those of Swindon Town Football Club or indeed Sir Tom himself. Honestly, an absolute pleasure being with you tonight. A real thrill. The pleasure was all ours. Good luck to everyone that's going to be travelling across the border and entering Bandit country, i.e. the other side of the Severn Bridge on Saturday. Bring those points home. Welcome home, Joe Tomlinson. Another belated welcome home to you, Charlie Austin. Congratulations and welcome permanently, Frazer, Blake-Tracy, and Jake Cain. You are, of course, very, very welcome at the county ground. Take good care of yourselves, guys. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Hope you've had as much fun as we have. I'll catch up with you all very soon.